And we're live, and with me I have Rutel.
Just call me Roy.
I have Roy, and Twitchy Twat, or
Yep.
Switchy
That's me.
Twats, or Twitchy Twats. Um,
Twitch for short.
Twitch.
yeah, Twitch.
Twitch will do.
And we're talking the uh, debates. Let's see. Let's see. I should probably send a link out so people could watch. I'm going to send a link. If you guys could talk, while
Sorry about that. Yeah. Let me just turn myself up a bit. One sec. There we go. Yeah. So Friday night, and we're here talking about the debate earlier this week, presidential debate between Hillary Rodham Clinton and Donald John Trump.
Monster Confessor's on. Monster Confessor, do you want to jump into Hangout? I could give you the link.
I'm very excited. This is my first Google Hangout.
I'm glad first time was to me. That's a joke.
Okay. You both saw the debate. What did you think of it overall?
Do you want to go first, Rin, or should I?
I think that both Trump and Hillary did a bad job, and I think that the best job come from the moderator. Like the moderator, it's like an A+.
Chris Wallace.
Give like Trump a C+, and I'll give like Hillary like a D-.
Well, that's not good.
Well, Hillary would probably spin it as, hey, at least it's a passing grade. And Donald was on a curve. Okay, well, I think I would agree in part with Rin. It seems like I remember, that's the thing, is I remember the 80s when they didn't have so much snark and they talked about policy. And with this election, it just seems to have been a complete absence of policy. Policy is almost an afterthought. And it's more of, let's see who can make the other person look bad. And whoever looks worse at the end of it wins the debate.
Yeah. Doesn't that really fit into the whole identitarian movement right now?
Identitarian?
Yeah.
I suppose. I mean, I think it also has to do with the fact that, I mean, I think really since 2012, we've seen sort of the culture of outrage build up more and more and more. It was kind of, sort of in its infancy in 2012, people still kind of kept that on the DL. But I think what has happened with Obama's last 4 years, it's really just intensified things in the sense that you had, the fact that things really haven't changed all that much. And with all these sort of scandals that came out, as well as I think what really also intensified it all was the 2014 elections on the Republican side anyway, where the Republicans were promising all these things, but as soon as they get in there, it's business as usual. I mean, I know I've talked to a lot of people that I've lived with, and they used to worship Paul Ryan back in 2012, but now they think he's, you know, the great Judas or something. But I think with the debate, as far as the debate goes, if you want to come down to who scored the most points, I think probably Trump did. You know, he did sort of keep his cool in a way that he didn't in the first couple of debates. Although the look on his face, it looked like, you know, he was about to like burst a blood vessel in his head or something like that, because you know, he just sort of just really trying not to, you know, blurt something out.
Sorry to interrupt, but I thought he was funnier in the first two debates, and I think humor is Trump's. It's like these little one-liners. I think the one-liners is his strong suit.
Yeah, it is his strong suit. I'd agree. I mean, I think the second debate, he was, you know, he was a regular, you know, he was a walking one-liner. I mean, and I think that played to his strength in a way that he really kind of controlled it the way he didn't control it in the first debate. With this debate, I think he was trying more to actually call Hillary more coherently out on all of this stuff that's been happening with her. And I think the fact that he had Chris Wallace there, who, you know, wasn't so obviously in the tank for Hillary in the way that Lester Holt and Martha Raddatz and Anderson deer in the headlights Cooper was. Seriously, I don't know if you noticed Anderson Cooper in the second debates, but he was just looking surprised, like they had just completely lost control of it because they were both just arguing with each other. But you know, I think, you know, when he did focus on policy, he sounded okay. But I think his strongest bits were when he was going after her with things like pay to play, the emails, Haiti. I thought the fact he brought up Haiti was a big deal, as well as things like the whole sort of bird dogging, you know, thing that you hear with sending, you know, sort of Clinton supporters into Trump rallies to start things up. And, you know, I think as far as the sort of religious right goes, he did bring up the partial birth abortion issue that a lot of people in the Republican Party have a problem with. And as far as that went, Hillary didn't have an answer for anything. She was always trying to pivot or sidestep or say that was a conspiracy. But, you know.
She does that.
Anyway, for me, I didn't think that Donald Trump did a good job in getting the fist senders, like people sitting on the fist. I don't think Donald Trump did a good. Currently looking at a poll of the general election, and this is Fox News. It doesn't have a liberal bias. Fox News actually has a conservative bias, and it still says that 81, not 81, sorry, my mistake. It says 48% are in favor of Hillary Clinton, and 41% are in favor of Donald Trump. So News, which is a conservative website, well, Twitter, it still has Hillary Clinton ahead. So it seems like Hillary is doing a better job. And I could give you a copy of the tweets inside chat so you can see it for yourselves. Let's to check that out.
I did see that poll earlier today myself. I mean, Twitch, do you have anything to, you know?
I follow Professor Floor, Nick Floor, and he
Same here.
Posts polls. I'm looking at it now. Polls from. Let's see, what is this from? I don't know. There's no link to it. That says at this point, October 21st, Clinton is at 43.8 and Trump at 44.5. So Trump has a slight lead, according to this poll.
I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Does any?
No, no, that was it. No.
Okay. I mean, the other thing is I I was looking at sort of the Rasmussen. They were interviewing the Rasmussen people, and they accounted for a possibility, and I'm just saying a possibility here. Because the thing is you've seen my Twitter feed. I don't trust polls. As
No.
I say, polls are like the Oracle of Delphi. You know, and it's kind of like what Julius Caesar here. We believe most that which we wish to be true.
Yeah.
But
And with the Carter Reagan thing, it's obvious polls are skewed.
yes,
Yeah.
Carter Reagan, when I believe it was Carter was up something like 7 points over Reagan, like a couple of weeks before the election, and Reagan ended up cleaning Carter's clock.
Yeah.
They thought that the third party candidate, what's his name, John Anderson, who was really just kind of the sort of the modern sort of a rhino, is what we would call them, Republican name only. Decided that he was going to run independent, but he ended up getting no electoral votes, and Reagan just ended up cleaning Carter's clock. Yeah. But with regards to Rasmussen, and as I say, polls, we can't be sure of them, they were saying what we're doing is we're also taking into account polls that we can get from people's cell phones, you know, where we can certify that this is coming from somebody's cell phone and it's not just a million bots on one of these non-scientific online polls like you see on Drudge, where they just flood it with Trump. And, you know, it's sort of like, okay, I can't believe that. But they say that a lot of these guys, we haven't used this as a resource yet. A lot of these old pollings, like what Fox News has been using, depends really only on people with landlines at a time when people have landlines less and less in this country.
Yeah.
And also the fact is that, and we've seen this not only from Rasmussen, but I believe somebody who I saw on Fox Business earlier today. Unfortunately, I don't have a link for it. But she used to work for Real Clear Politics, and she said one of the hardest things about Trump supporters is they do things like they don't pick up their phone.
Yeah.
You know, or they might be quiet enough on these things. But as I say, that's really what the Trump people are kind of going with to say that Trump's going to win in a landslide. I don't think it's going to be a landslide. I think it's going to be close, whichever way it goes. But, you know, as I say, polls, Oracle Delphi.
Yeah.
I think that Chris Wallace did a great job being a moderator, and so he's the only person I would give an A+ to. He was awesome, and I love him now. And he brought up some good points, and I took screenshots from the transcript. Here's what the transcript says.
Okay.
Secretary Clinton, I want plan because in many ways it's just similar to the Obama stimulus plan in 2009, which has led to the slowest GDP growth since 1949. And I thought that it was a really great point to bring up.
Yes, I mean the stimulus. The thing is that was really kind of a hard question, because the stimulus was sort of the first major act of Obama's administration back in 2009, and he said it was going to create these shovel-ready jobs. And indeed, he pumped nearly $1 trillion into it, and very few jobs showed up, or they were jobs that were in such the short term that they didn't last long, or didn't really make an honest living out of anything. And there were also accusations from various circles that the stimulus, in many ways, was kind of a slush fund. It was kind of a way of saying thank you to all of the unions here and there. But that's one way of looking at it. I don't know if anybody else has kind of a different view.
I think, in the 30s, was it Roosevelt?
FDR, yes.
FDR, yeah. He did something like this, but there's a difference between just giving money out and planning where the money goes.
That's true. I mean, um, with FDR, I mean, F. Oh, Sorry, I'm just trying to be fair to FDR here,
Yeah.
because I tend to follow the. I tend to be of the forgotten man by Amity Shlaes school, in which FDR meant well, but in a lot of cases he may have prolonged the depression. But he was a much better presenter of things. He was a much better cheerleader,
Hmm.
in that he, when he put out all of this money, which was in many ways taxpayers' money,
Hmm.
he still nevertheless created sort of the alphabet soup and everything. He says, "Oh, go here, the Works Progress Administration," which is just giving jobs to like artists and everything. I mean, Woody Guthrie loved that stuff. We've got the Tennessee Valley Administration. We've got, these plans here to bring electricity to areas it hasn't been. So it did bring in some good things. But the thing is when, I mean, he had people, and we also have to remember this is a pre-internet era. So they could just give sort of a top-down thing and give hope to anybody who just didn't have a job. I mean, a lot of people weren't as sort of media savvy back then, although now they're probably still not so media savvy despite all the media. But the thing is he was much better at presenting it and making it look like he was actually doing something and getting results. And although it wasn't without its problems, it certainly helped him out in that respect. In that he could show people, well, it's going to this, and this is what this does, and this is what that does. Whereas with the stimulus package, it was basically just stimulus and go with us on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, you have a good point there with the stimulus.
Yeah.
I took more screenshots. Let's see. Okay. From Chris Wallace, Secretary Clinton. Oh, never mind. This is from Danielle Kirstenben, but she was trying to give context to it. This last contest, the stimulus package was designed to fix the deeper the financial crisis caused, according to a 2015 report from the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act raised the national GDP every year from 2009 to 2013 and in 2014. It may have raised GDP by up to 0.2 percentage points. That's what it means. It did not lead to slow GDP growth, though it was followed by slow GDP growth. Many economists would argue that the stimulus package, in fact, made economic growth higher than it would have been otherwise. Here's a poll of economists arguing, saying that the benefits of the outweigh the costs, as well as lowered unemployment rates. And Daniela Kurtzenbell. And again, I'm taking this from a transcript of the debates. They were given the transcript and adding their own little inserts to it.
Okay. Twitch, do you have any?
I couldn't hear half of it. Rin, your audio keeps dropping off on my side.
Well,
could you share a link? Could you post it somewhere so I can read it?
Well, I think from what I got there, they said that if the stimulus had not been initiated, then GDP growth would have been a lot slower than it was, than it ended up being if they hadn't passed it. And this actually kept the unemployment rate down.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it are that what could also have been done was perhaps an across-the-board tax cut which would have really inspired a lot of faith with some businesses who were struggling, and it would have allowed for the hiring of more jobs. I mean, the thing is the GDP of the Obama years, you see in other countries where it's like 2%, 3%, 4%. The best we've been able to do thus far is 1%. And I'm not sure about that. Moreover, the jobs that it has introduced are low-paying jobs. They're not really jobs that you can, write home about with regards to wages and everything. And with the introduction of Obamacare, it's kind of, we are living in a society right now where jobs don't have all the perks that come with it, like at the very least a partial coverage of health care or an IRA or something like that.
Yeah.
By the way, can you guys see the screenshots I took?
Yeah, I'm seeing a dark screen. It's not really showing up right now.
Oh, if my screenshots hasn't showed up all this time, then it's just not going to show up.
Okay.
I take the screenshots, but it does suck that my audio dropped out.
But I mean, that's from what they assessed. I mean, that was the gist of what I got.
Yeah. I'm looking at the GDP for the Netherlands right now, and as far as I can see, it hasn't been rising that much. Maybe 1%. Yeah, about 1%.
Yeah, it's been a slow recovery all around.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris Wallace says, thank you, sir. You told me in July when we spoke that's the problem is that President Obama didn't get to do enough of what he was trying to do with the stimulus. No, is your plan basically even more of the same as the Obama stimulus? Hillary Clinton said, well, it's a combination, Chris. And let me say that when you inherit the level of economic catastrophe that President Obama inherited, it was a real touch and go situation. I was in the Senate before I became Secretary of State. So what do you guys think of Hillary's response?
It's true. It was disastrous what happened in 2008. It's I don't think that Iceland. I don't know if any of you read about Iceland in the last couple of years.
To an extent, yeah.
They really they refused to pay off the banks, and they actually sued a couple of bankers and actually jailed them. And they are right now one of the best economies in the world.
Well, yeah, I did hear about that and everything, and with regards to that sounded like it worked best for Iceland.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it worked the same for the U.S., especially considering when Hillary said that. I found that to be, and I'm glad you read that out, Rin. Thanks, because I had forgotten about that. But I remembered at the time I found that to be very disingenuous, because first of all, a lot of these problems came in under Clinton with regards to the housing crisis.
Yeah.
Because essentially the government came in and told all these banks, you better loan to these people, and these people, namely people that we're trying to, win votes with. Otherwise, we'll put you into an investigative purgatory. And, so basically a lot of these banks were forced to take on subprime loans. Now, here's where the banks screwed up, is where they figured we're not going to take on all of these bad loans, these subprime loans ourselves, so we're going to spread it around. So when the bubble bursts, because it is a bubble, we won't be hit as badly.
Yeah.
So what they do is they spread this out into the stock market in the form of things like derivatives and everything. And before you know it, it's not just in the housing market, it's hitting people, it's infecting people's retirement plans, it's infecting people's 401ks, IRAs. And whenever, and to be honest, I am no fan of George Bush, but whenever Bush, he did try and regulate this, the people sitting on the committee that sort of investigating these things were chaired by Democrats who didn't want it investigated. I mean, I remember Barney Frank always sort of throwing a tantrum whenever he would, Bush would say, are you sure we're doing okay? And everything. And Frank would, which was interesting because Frank actually had a relationship with one of the board members on one of the leading firms that made these loans, Fannie Mae, at the time. So there was a conflict of interest there. That's neither here nor there. But when it all blew up, it kind of came back on George Bush. And whenever, this was being brought up, either Obama or Clinton would say it was all Bush's fault.
Yeah.
With regards to Hillary Clinton's Senate career, she did nothing during her Senate career. I think at most, she says that she passed something like 400 pieces of legislation or was involved in 400 pieces of legislation. Well, about 397 of those pieces of legislation never passed or never even came to committee. I would need to double check that, but she didn't pass a whole lot of laws. I think the most laws she passed, one of them had to do with renaming a highway. One of them had to do with, putting, naming a certain area an historical monument, and the other one I forget. And just about the only thing that she can really put her name to is she supported the Iraq War.
Yeah. What I find funny in this is that Republicans don't jump on that. 400 bills, 400. Imagine this, 400 bills. How many laws do you need?
Well, that's the thing is a friend of mine, he said the biggest problem with congressmen is they hated Newt Gingrich, mainly because Newt Gingrich said we're passing these bills and then we're not passing any more. And they hated his guts mainly because they were just sort of sitting there in Congress just doing nothing, reading the paper or something like that because the speaker didn't want to have anything passed. He just basically said we're not going to overregulate and everything. And when that's the thing is a lot of these congressmen, when they come into Washington, not only do they want to be, they want to make a name for themselves. They want to, change the world, even though the world might not necessarily need to be changed. And then they fall into the problem of the establishment bubble and the lobbyists and going to the cocktail parties and getting all the perks, that if they want to be part of that, then they have to support this bill or they have to support that bill. And it kind of becomes this, just this problem for not them, but basically for everyone else.
Yeah.
I do wonder if we're going to repeat history. I'm not sure if we're going to repeat the fall of the Roman Empire or if we're going to repeat the French Revolution. But it's kind of like, I remember watching a video ago, and there's a lot of Black people in Chicago, and they're saying things like they don't even have the choice to vote Republican. Democrats is the only choice that they have, and Chicago is basically in ruin. It's like, like so many Black people don't have jobs, and it's like the crime rates is like really high. It's kind of like they wish they could vote Republican, and they can't. They're talking about how all Democrats do is make these promises and they don't follow through. And it makes me wonder, it's like, how bad is America going to get? Especially since Hillary Clinton wants open borders. And, it's like if we have open borders, then the, Mexicans are going to come in. And I have no problem with Mexicans. Like I hate how like the Democrats go, well, if you have a problem with the Mexicans coming in, then you're just That's not the problem. The Mexicans, they have their own problems. That's the reason why they're coming over here. They're not coming over here over nothing. They have their drug war problem. Like the reason why Mexicans are jumping the fence and trying to get over here, instead of being capitalist thing over there in their country, is that they have this drug war problem and gang violence is so bad. It's like I read an article about it from Pew Research, and it's like it's really bad over there. That's why they're coming over here. So if we open the borders, then their problems would be our problems. And there's not going to be enough jobs to go around. There's not going to be enough jobs for Americans and illegals.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what Sargon touched upon when he was talking about the fall of the Roman Empire. When he said, they brought in all these slaves, so the Romans themselves couldn't get any jobs.
Well, yes, and just to say, it's just because I teach it, and I'm not trying to sound all high and mighty here, but but it's the Roman Republic that was happening with, and indeed, what's strange is that, and this is very much simplifying matters. This is why by sort of 100 years after all of these problems were happening, and the Senate looks like it's completely just not functional anymore, or doesn't have any credibility anymore. This is when a lot of the Roman people started looking to strongmen, like Pompey the Great, or or Julius Caesar, or Mark Antony, or of course ultimately Octavian, who became Augustus. And it was much more about people willing to give up their liberty, especially with Augustus. I mean, with Julius Caesar, you can at least sort of defend him, in which he said, "I'm just becoming dictator so I can fix the republic." And of course, he wasn't dictator for too long, because all of his supposed best friends killed him. But with Augustus, he basically just ends up making them trade their liberty and their rights and whatever rights they had under the Constitution for safety and security and free stuff, bread and circuses and all that. Yeah. I think it's interesting that you bring in the French Revolution, because, I mean, it's kind of, it is kind of, that's a good point. It is kind of a combination of the two, in which, on one hand, it's kind of this fall of the Roman Republic, in that, this checks and balances system has been violated. But on the other hand, with regards to the French Revolution, you're seeing on both sides, they're kind of eating each other. I mean, let's face it, the Republicans don't trust the establishment part of their parties, and they want to turn on them. And while I think one of the reasons that everybody was really supporting Bernie Sanders, who's much more of a sort of a radical form of a Democrat, they just wanted something different than the establishment. And, Bernie sort of spoke more to them. And the fact that, I will say this, I'm not a socialist, but Bernie Sanders seemed to be principled. He seemed to be honest. He seemed to be a guy that if you didn't agree with him, he would at least respect your opinion without trying to tear you down. That's not Hillary Clinton. She seems to be this dirty fighter who tears you down. So I think a lot of people were more comfortable with Sanders, but at the same time, he's still more of a radical version. And with the revolution, you see a more radicalization of the revolution, in which everybody's eating each other.
I would say that Bernie Sanders, just like Donald Trump, is also anti-establishment.
Yes.
He also, Bernie Sanders also complained about the establishment, and Bernie Sanders, like Trump, also complained that the system is rigged. Like, how many times have Bernie Sanders said that the system is rigged? Now Donald Trump is saying it. I mean, some similarities between Trump and Sanders.
Well, yeah, and the fact that Jill Stein is still getting less votes than Harambe is some people probably have gone over to Donald Trump's side, or that's what Trump is hoping for anyway. And indeed, that's what Clinton's hoping for. But I think a lot of Sanders supporters probably, I think Hillary is scared that not as many Sanders supporters have gone over to her side because they are anti-establishment. And especially with sort of the emergence of these DNC leaks and WikiLeaks and everything.
Yeah, like Bernie Sanders supporters being the basement dwellers. And I think what reminds me of the French Revolution is, okay, I've learned about the French Revolution a few weeks ago from Crash Course Psychology. Well, one of the Crash Course videos. I don't know if it's correct or not, but it's kind of a lot like it seems that the people were suffering, but like Louis the 15th, he was like really, really fat, and he was eating like pigeon and what's not, and there's the famous Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake lie," and it's kind of a lot like right here. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but 50% of Americans are living in poverty. Even when Donald Trump Jr. was talking to Sean Kennedy. Is that his name, Sean Hannity?
Sean Hannity, yes.
Yeah, he was talking about, how impoverished Americans are and how bad things actually are for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, but you see like I think Sanders supporters are coming from. I know that the Amazing Atheist and Jacqueline Glenn made a video talking about it, how like the top 20% has the overwhelming majority of the country's wealth, which kind of reminds me of what Sargon was saying about the fall of the Roman Empire, how most of the wealth is for the selected few people. Yeah. And it could just lead to uprising or a revolt of some sorts, which reminds me of Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. According to The Prince, it's kind of a lot like what would destroy a country would be the malcontents.
No, that's true. With regards to, and to be honest, Amazing Atheists, Jacqueline Glenn, they certainly are. You certainly know when where they're coming from when they're giving their political opinions, and they definitely seemed to be within the Sanders camp. I really just don't see Amazing Atheist as a Hillary supporter. That's just me.
By the way, about the level of poverty in the U.S. What's her name? Miss Roaming Millennial did a week ago did a video about this, and she took up some statistics about this, and she said, don't get me on the numbers, but about 3% of people in America are really poor. The rest is above the poverty line. With about 40% in middle income. She's very good, very, very smart girl. But the Marie Antoinette thing made me think about something else. If you say about 20% is very, very rich, how could they know? How could they ever know how people live? They can't.
Well,
that's Marie Antoinette. They say one of her lines, the famous line, "Let them eat cake." The explanation for this is not that she actually said that, but she could have said that, just because she didn't think that cake would be made of the same stuff as bread.
Well, yes. With regards to that whole line, there were bread shortages, very bad harvests right before the French Revolution, and it was actually more of a question rather than a declaration. That's the thing with Marie Antoinette. She
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily this
She was
poor
an evil.
person, I will, she wasn't like that, Elizabeth woman from Hungary who dined on the blood of babies or anything to keep her youth. She was just kind of in her own little world that it never really occurred to her. And the actual quote is, why don't they just eat cake? Because cake was where, it was basically, cake was initially made of all the sort of dried up bits of bread right before they went stale. And you would use that to sort of make up cakes in order so that you could take that bread as far as you could. So it was actually a question of, well, they still have these things, don't they? Well, why don't they eat that? I mean, and I think in the context, she was asking it in such a way as it just, we could use that as a delaying tactic until we figure out what to do. Yeah. But it tends to get passed down, especially through the various lenses, the classical liberal lens, the Marxist lens, the anarcho-capitalist lens, she tends to come across as sort of this bimbo-ish villain, which that's the thing with the French Revolution. I mean, their biggest crimes were that they had, I think that they were well-intentioned, but they were just out of touch.
Yeah.
I think with these guys at this point, I don't know if they have good intentions. No. I think they figure if they just can throw us the newest iPhone that doesn't, well, not the Samsung Galaxy Phone 7, but
the Note, the Note.
Yeah.
The Galaxy S is great. It's a great phone.
Yes, they want us to. Yes, they want to give them to all the senior citizens so they don't kill Social Security. But the thing is, I think Hillary Clinton, she kind of had a Marie Antoinette moment with Goldman Sachs, one of those speeches she was giving that WikiLeaks released, where she says that while I can try and sympathize with the middle class, I am completely out of touch with them because I have been so far removed from them for so many years, because it's not that I've been working. It's just that I've been married to Bill Clinton for the last, however many years, and we've been doing just fine.
Yeah.
But with regards to, the malcontents and everything, you mentioned Machiavelli. Machiavelli was very much dealing with sort of the histories of classical civilizations. For example, ancient Athens would send a lot of its so-called malcontents off to occupy their colonies or off to occupy their fortresses once they were the Athenian Empire. The only thing is I think it's a little, this is a much different situation in that we're not, we're having, our, and I'm not going to say malcontents, I'm going to say excess population. We don't just have our excess population here, we have more coming from over the borders and everything. And I think the main problem with Mexico, you're talking about Mexico and it having its problems. I think Mexico in a lot of ways keeps its unemployment low, keeps its benefits state on par, mainly by sending a lot of its people up here and saying, go and do that. And of course, these guys get their jobs and send their money back to their families in Mexico, as you do, because you're trying to be a good, you're trying to exhibit some filial piety, so to speak. But the thing is that can only work if we don't have this welfare state, if we don't have Medicaid, if we don't have Medicare, if we have, that's the thing. Milton Friedman said that immigration, unrestricted immigration only works in truly free markets. Sort of like, I don't know, like BioShock, where Andrew Ryan during the good days. But once you add in things like a welfare state, any sort of socialist policies, you're causing the government to spend more money, and that becomes a problem. And especially when the government is trying to, because don't you know, politicians always want to get elected, so they want to say that they've done this program and that program and that program. So they'll introduce these things while at the same time saying, oh, I'm for free market too, so I'm bringing in NAFTA, not realizing that you really can really only have one or the other. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't have, a welfare state while at the same time having unrestricted immigration, because people are always going to come in. And the biggest problem with the welfare state is it wasn't what it was originally. I mean, I know the welfare state in the UK was originally, they had all these set rules where it's basically you can only be on it for this long and do it for this long, and you better have a job by this time, otherwise we're cutting you off, because quite frankly, you're not supposed to live on this.
Yeah, that's how it is in the Netherlands. We had something when you get your pension, you get a state pension, right? And you get a rent which you saved up for. But the state pension is you can get it if you're in the Netherlands and you're a Dutch citizen.
Anyway.
And it was, you know, you're a Dutch citizen and you move to, say, Portugal, and we don't even know if you died, but you still get the pension. So at a certain point, they saw that was not a good thing. So you know, the welfare state has to be tweaked all the time. It really needs to be tweaked. Go along with what's happening in the world, and well, they did a bad job at that, and now we're here.
Anyway, to Root to Nell, I put the Pew Research on site chat to me. It's slightly old, but I mean, it's a 2009, so it's probably not that. This is what I was talking about.
Yes, I'm looking at it now.
Facing a variety of national problems, crime, drugs, corruption, a troubled economy, Mexicans overwhelmingly are dissatisfied with the direction of their country. With drug-related violence affecting much of Mexico, large majorities describe crime, 81%, and illegal drugs, 73%, as very big problems. And Mexico endorsed President Philip Cardon or whatever tough stance against drug traffickers. Most believe life is better in the U.S. Close to 6 in 10 say that people who move from Mexico enjoy a better life in the U.S., up from 51 in 2007. And the vast majority of those who are regular contacts with friends and relatives in the U.S. say friends and relatives have largely achieved their goals. Now, my concern is that with open borders, they would bring their problems over here, you know.
Well, I mean, the thing is first of all, when I was discussing I was just discussing one aspect of the Mexican problem. It's not as simple as that. And yes, you do have these problems of government corruption, the drug cartels. I mean, these are some people you don't want to mess with. I mean, it's like they're trying to outdo Pablo Escobar in being people that you don't mess with. And read about Pablo Escobar and you'll know what I'm talking about. But with regards to that, yeah, I think that I'm not sure. Yes, they are coming over here because there is more of a sense of stability, because Mexico is since the revolution back in the 19 teens with Madero and Zapata and Villa and Carranza and all those guys, Huerta, Mexico has kind of been a seesaw of stability and instability, and it's just I mean, the thing is I think that the U.S. has to sort of sit down with Mexico and say, okay, what's the problem here? Because sooner or later, we are not going to be able to take all of your population and everything. What help do you need from us? That sort of thing. And you need to do it very carefully because, you know, you don't want to do what, you know, say General Pershing did back, you know, right before World War I, where we're sending troops down into Mexico just to beat up on the locals in order to show our strength and everything. Do you know what I mean?
My concern is that with open borders, too many of them are going to come
Well, yeah.
to America, and then America is going to collapse, and then, you know, there's just going to be so much chaos. You know,
Well, yes.
there's going to be, if a bunch of Mexicans flood over here because of Hillary's open borders idea.
To be fair,
It's going to be like hell in the United States. It's going to basically be hell because it's going to be hard to manage that many people. It's going to have hard to have stability. There's probably not going to be enough food and water to go around. You know, you can't pay that many people. I mean, there's going to be too many people to take care of. I mean, what about the budgets? What about the U.S. budgets? Could we afford to take care of Americans and Mexicans? I mean, I don't think so. We're already in debt. So it's kind of like there's going to be trouble. And I was going to make a video on this. Well, I'll probably still make a video on this. But it's kind of like in Germany, Angela Merkel had open borders and invited a bunch of illegals to come in, and now they're trying to sue her. You know, like, they're mad, they're upset because, again, the Mexicans come here for order and stability. And I actually saved would put the article on side chats, but basically it says how people want to sue Angela Merkel. Basically, the illegals that she invited over to her country, they want to sue her. I would just give you the article as soon as I find it.
Okay. Twitch, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, it's not relevant anymore. Sorry.
Okay. Well, the thing is with regards to Mexico, it's been very controversial over here, I can say, because you have other groups who aren't doing so well. For example, the African American community, who really are wondering, are we going to be sort of, you know, are they going to take our jobs out from under us because they're willing to work for less money, that sort of thing. Moreover, and some people have been complaining about this. Others, I mean, the thing is you can't paint everything with a broad brush, but you have heard anecdotal examples that a lot of these people that are showing up are really just showing up to the border and getting processed, and then they're told, okay, you need to come to this for your amnesty meeting or your immigration meeting or something like that, and they never show up because they don't necessarily want to become citizens, because they don't necessarily want to pay the taxes, because they want to maximize whatever they make in order to either, you know, save for themselves or to send back to Mexico. And I mean, the thing is this is all painted or portrayed as we must be merciful to these people. But at the same time, when we can't even work to help the people in our own country, why do we need to save the world as well? And that's sort of the major problem there. With regards to Angela Merkel, I think that she was just part of this culture that where we need, I mean, the Christian Democrats of today are not the Christian Democrats of, say, the time of Konrad Adenauer. You know, Adenauer would look at this and just go, "Nine," you know. But
we've become insane. That's
I
what he
could,
would say.
I mean, with regards to Angela Merkel, it's like we have all this prosperity that we got in the 50s and 60s and 70s under this plan, but now that we created everything under the Maastricht Treaty, that created the EU, it's like, oh, we're doing so well right now, but we're kind of overselling how well we've done. And so when something like ISIS and Syria happens, we're letting all these people come in. But that's the problem of parliamentary democracy, is that basically all of these people who are elected, who want to look good for the cameras and want to look good for the news channels, they are pretty much given carte blanche to do whatever they want for however many years, and the people just have to suck it up. And what the people in parliament or would say, various parliaments would say is, well, we can just we'll just wait until the next election, and the year beforehand we'll tell them what they want to hear, but at the same time just keep doing what we're doing. And I think that's one of the things that really sort of influenced something like Brexit. But
anyway, I put the link inside chat, and I have the article of Myrtle's humiliation. Thousands of refugees Angela Merkel welcomed with open arms are now suing her. Side chat now. Dozens of migrants have successfully sued Angela Merkel for not giving them full refugee status, and it's kind of like inviting a bunch of Mexicans here could bite America in the ass,
Well, first of all, no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah. And second of all, with the way that the European courts are set up, they tend to allow stuff like this to happen. I mean, I don't know everything about EU law. I am by no means an expert, but with the way things have set up, with sort of the human rights laws and everything like that, you can get away with a lot more in Europe than you can over here. I think all they have to do is run into the wrong judge from Texas, who would then say, I'm not even trying this case. Yeah. I mean, it all depends, because in other places you have liberal judges who really like to do things like legislate from the bench without really consulting anyone. So it might be more of a mixed bag over here, but no, you're right. It might still be a problem, especially in places like blue states. Like California, like Illinois, like Michigan, like New York, where the culture is we need to welcome everybody, we need to be merciful, we need to look like the good guys. Not so much because more to, I don't know, maybe contrast us with all of those other bad people. I'm not sure.
But also, Ritzna, I want to address a point you were talking about earlier. I believe earlier you said that Black people don't want Mexicans to take jobs from under them. Is that correct?
Well, what I was trying to say was that in sort of more urban areas, which are are sort of very much populated by minorities. And as I say, I don't have all the facts in front of me, but from news reports I've read, but from sort of anecdotal information I've also seen, is that there is sort of where, say, African American unemployment is already a big problem, and it has been continuously under the Obama administration. There is sort of a concern over, there's so few jobs already. What happens when we see more people show up?
I want to address this. It could be because we live in a Republican states. It could be because my mother's doing well, but it's kind of like what's I think his name is Larry Elder. I'm not
Larry
sure.
Elder, yes, he's a libertarian radio host. I've seen him a lot on when Penn and Teller bullshit was still on. But go ahead.
Yeah, Larry Elder, the Black Republican. Is that who he is?
He's more of a libertarian. Somebody like Thomas Sowell would be more of a Black Republican.
He was talking about like how black people agree with the social justice parts of the Democratic Party, because when you really think about it, the majority of black people are against gay marriage. The majority of are Christians. I mean, and the majority of black people want to keep their guns.
So what you're referring to more is the social conservatism, not the social justice, because that's more social conservatism, where yes, Second Amendment rights and yeah.
I do think that black people agree with more of the social justice part, because like my mother is voting for Hillary Clinton, and my mother votes for Hillary Clinton because we need a woman to be president. Like, do we need to have a woman as the president? But it's like it's time to have a woman. But also, it's kind of like Trump is racist, and it's like, oh, the things about he said about the Mexicans. I mean, like, oh, this is racist, that is racist. I didn't social justice like this is racist, that is racist, and the idea that open, like to want to build a wall, like that is so racist. So that is just racist.
I mean, I've heard that as well. I mean, I think what you're mentioning there is how there's this kind of dichotomy of, on one level, what happens in the community is there's this belief that in your personal lives you tend to be a social conservative, in which you do believe in things like your Second Amendment rights. You're sort of not so hot on things like same-sex marriage. You're not so you tend to attend church and be sort of churchgoers. On the other hand, yes, there's more of this social justice thing where you feel like the Democrats are the only people who could help you out, and the Republicans, well, they might have helped you out like roundabouts 100 years ago or 150 years ago, but they really haven't helped out now. And to be honest, that is partly the fault of the Republicans, who kind of wrote off a lot of the African American community during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as well as the early 2000s. But I mean, that's the thing is, I think the thing is I know that a lot of I've heard a lot of people in the African American community, they might not necessarily be for Trump, but I do think that there might be something in there that you're starting to see. And as I say, I am not black myself. I don't know what it is to, I haven't had that experience, but from what I've read, more and more people within the African American community are starting to just become completely disillusioned with the Democratic Party now, especially now that Sanders is out of the picture, that they might be going, well, to hell with it. I might as well just vote for Trump. And I'm not saying that Trump is going to get like 93% of the population, because let's face it, I don't have any drugs on me right now, so I can't really make an assumption like that. But I mean, I can see perhaps maybe there being anywhere from 10 to 15% of the vote going to Trump, but more than anything, I think maybe a protest vote rather than necessarily subscribing to those beliefs overall. Do you know what I'm saying? I hope
because I know that my mother thinks that Donald Trump is racist. No, I try to tell my mom about the racist things that Hillary Clinton says. Like, well, what about Hillary Clinton calling black people baskets of deplorables? But well, not that, but super predators. That's it, super predators.
Yeah, I was thinking super predators myself. But,
yeah, I meant to say super predators. But it's kind of like, she just repeats social. Like, it's about the time we had a woman at the White House. Trump said mean things. The idea that we should have a wall It's
Well,
really racist, it's racist against the Mexicans. And it's like, I do think black people, it's kind of like my mom, she's as Christian as could be. She's against gay marriage. It's kind of like, it's kind of like as Larry Elder, described, like how religious black people are and how, against black people are, but it's kind of like yet have that other aspects where you agree with social justice, where you're pro woman, and this is racist, sexist, and misogynist, and you go for Democrats because that's the party. I mean, in all honesty, they're really good at pandering to black people.
that, and they wrote the dictionary for things like racist, misogynist, ableist, whatever, phobic. I mean, which is ironic considering it was the Democratic Party that was the party of slavery and of the Civil War and of segregation, and they were the people to come up with this so-called Great Society that didn't really do a whole lot of that community a whole lot of favors, but nevertheless, they had better PR.
Well, according to Cenk Uygur, the Democrats and the Republicans switched places.
Yes,
The
but
Republicans turned to Democrats. A lot of, it's kind of like the Democrats and the Republicans decided to like switch labels. That's what's going on.
yes, but Cenk Uygur is a discredited, insane fool who doesn't admit that the Armenian genocide happened when indeed half of that world's population was taken out by the Ottoman Turks.
But
I'm just saying.
people do argue that.
No, I know.
People were telling me that on Twitter. Like how I get receive arguments from people who want to defend Hillary Clinton. To me, there's a person who says, well, the Democrats and the Republicans switch places. And I'm like, no, that's been debunked. Like, nope. The Democrats and Republicans switch places.
Well, that's the thing, is the Republicans were always of the opinion, well, despite the fact that a lot of them have, especially after Nixon, a lot of them sort of became these big government Republicans. But back in the day, they were basically, everybody should have an equality of opportunity, not necessarily an equality of outcome. And what happened was that when the Great Depression hit and the African American community were in a very sort of tight place because the Republicans who wanted to win elections were getting a little bit less, then again, when you're just about providing equality of opportunity and kind of you have your own personal agency and you're on your own, they always had that opinion. But the thing is when the Great Depression came in and FDR was offering all of these goodies that continued to be offered by people like LBJ, they were able to say, we're giving you stuff. The Republicans don't give you stuff. The Republicans don't think you should have this stuff. Whereas the Republican opinion was, no, you should just have equality of opportunity. Which, to be honest, I mean, they weren't always clear about communicating. And indeed, they were trying to play demographics in elections just like the Democrats were. But their philosophy, when it comes down to this sort of free market equality of opportunity philosophy, never really changed. It's just that the Democrats were able to sort of take advantage of the community when they were in vulnerable places and kind of carve things out for themselves. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh wait, Kobe Production is in chats. Kobe Production asked, what do you guys think about Hillary telling people to Google Donald Trump Iraq to disprove his claim that he was always against the Iraq war?
I saw the first video, the first interview he did, and he was not exactly against it, but he was definitely not for it. He went along with it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is it occurred to me that he was probably still trying to figure it out. He was not in a position of politics yet. He was just being asked this kind of on Howard Stern offhand. And when you're with Howard Stern, it's not like you're being asked questions by Jeremy Paxman or William F. Buckley or someone like that. So, I mean, I think he has that to go for. I think that he really never gave a definite.
No.
But Hillary did, and then proceeded to try and cover herself afterwards by saying stuff like, oh, well, now I oppose the Iraq War. The party of dissent are just as much patriots as the party of, the majority, et cetera, which never seemed to get applied during the Obama administration, incidentally. And I think that for me, as I say, I'm not sure if I'm voting for Trump right now, but I would say of all the things, that's not a major issue for me. I think Hillary, it's actually down for her that she supported the Iraq War. And what she's doing right now is just this old sort of left tactic of trying to deflect her own behavior onto someone else.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I still want to answer Kobe Productions
of course
question, because I was the only one who didn't respond. Actually mentioned this on Twitter like a few months ago, and I already seen the video, and it seemed I had to agree with you, Ro. Anyway, Donald Trump didn't give a definite answer. He wasn't definitely for, and he wasn't definitely against. He just gave a wishy-washy answer.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I think much of it, but I also Road Snell or whatever, when he says that Hillary Clinton is just trying to deflect, she does that in debates. I remember one debate she had with Bernie Sanders, and that I think it was I'm not sure who the moderator was. I think it was Anderson Cooper, who asked her when are you going to release her speeches, I think, or release her I think it was her Golden Sachs speeches, and she said, well, whenever Donald Trump releases his taxes, and when Donald Trump releases his taxes, that's when I would release my speeches. So all she does is deflect. But to his question, Donald Trump, he was just wishy-washy, didn't give a definite for or against, so think of it.
Yeah, I think he was just thinking off the top of his head at the time. This was 2002, 2003, and I'm sure that he wanted, especially, you got to remember, it's crazy that this was 15 years ago that 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who are voting age now who weren't young enough to, who weren't old enough to remember this, but people were really trying to figure out what they thought about this whole Iraq thing. And some people, I remember at the time, I thought, like, should we go into Iraq? Is it really all that? I mean, I know Saddam Hussein's a complete fucking douchebag, but, you know, aren't we opening up a Pandora's box here? Or on the other hand, and, you know, is that yellow cake uranium? Does he have that? Could he have sent it to Syria? And that, I mean, there were a lot of people, and really the only people who were completely for this or against this were sort of the, you know, your interventionist conservatives who are like these ideologues. And of course, on the other hand, you had those people on the left who were ideologues. And there were a lot of us just going, do I support this? I'm not sure. Yeah. And I think when go ahead.
On this side of the pond, we I think the sentiment was something like, well, you say there's proof. What's the proof?
Yeah.
Give us the proof.
Well,
and they just didn't.
Well, I was doing my PhD at Liverpool in 2002, 2003, and that was, I can vouch for that. That was pretty much like, is Blair just sucking up to Bush in the most epic way possible?
Yeah.
So none of us knew, and I think that, again, with Hillary Clinton, when she said, oh, he supported the Iraq War and everything, everybody on her side has a rather selective memory, and they're so sure now because, we have the luxury of that being 15 years ago when we've, been able to formulate our opinions and we're so sure of them. And I think the biggest problem is we don't remember, or it's hard for us to remember back in the day what we were thinking.
Yeah, I think Hillary's problem and her campaign's problem is that the internet doesn't forget.
Yeah. No matter how much she would like.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, this is what I would like to switch to. Given that, like everybody has a computer, and given that, we do have presidents that suck and don't care about the will of the people, I think it would be nice. It's kind of like when it comes to things like, for example, marijuana. Let's take marijuana for example. And should marijuana be legalized? Yes or no? It would be nice if people themselves could vote for it via the computer, and it could just keep track of your IP address multiple times. And what we could do is like and I was talking about this with a live stream with Saint Clair, and what we could do is like a doctor's opinion could count like 3 points, and people who don't have a medical degree, their opinion could count like 1 point, because at least a doctor would know what they're talking about, whereas the citizen wouldn't know so much. So it would be nice, in my opinion, like if instead of the votes going to the governments, which sometimes ignores the will of the people, if people could vote for what they do and don't want via the internet, and just keep track of IP address, make sure that nobody votes multiple times too.
Yeah, the whole pot marijuana discussion is really strange to me. I'm from Holland.
They legalized it the year I was born.
Yeah, well, it's not legal,
No, but tolerated it.
It's tolerated, but drug crimes and that kind of stuff is really low here. Portugal recently legalized every drug you can get. Doesn't matter, and the crime rates have dropped significantly.
Well, in my states, marijuana is still illegal.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that, I am in a state where the case is the same. And I think that this sort of Anslinger, J. Edgar Hoover idea that pot will somehow turn you into this rambling psychotic, or I thought it was very funny that Chelsea Clinton came out during a talk saying that marijuana kills. Seriously, seriously, you can tell that this girl is a princess because she doesn't have a brain in her head.
No.
She's only gotten as far as she has because of who her mommy and daddy are. I personally, seriously, I read that was the dumbest fucking thing I read in a while. Seriously, not even Nancy Reagan said that marijuana killed, and she was the author of the Just Say No campaign.
Yeah, she was really, really against it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. She was all about the fear. I grew up in the 80s. And the thing is with marijuana, honestly, in principle, I think that yes, it should, at the very least, medical marijuana should be legalized and recreational marijuana should be decriminalized.
Yeah.
I think if you did that, then what would happen is you could just encourage people to say, okay, if you're going to get marijuana, here's what you do. You go in your house. If there are any kids in the house, you better keep it as far the hell away from them as you can. But if you're not, sitting in church and lighting up a joint, or you're not sitting in the park right next to a family picnic and lighting up a joint, we won't touch you. But have some discretion and do so in the privacy of your own home. I think and I think in a lot of ways, the state I'm in, if you're caught with that, you're a year in jail. But the deal is it's the biggest danger is when you're picking it up.
Yeah.
And I went to graduate school, so I won't lie. I have in the past.
You
But
have inhaled.
I have inhaled, and I have watched episodes of Justice League, and they were awesome. But the thing is you need to have some discretion about it. I think
I think for America that's the way to go. Discretion in the things you do. For Dutch people, this doesn't work. We're not discreet about anything.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think with the legalization in Colorado, I think they kind of did that wrong. They were way overestimating the amount of tax money they were going to get from it.
Yeah.
And they didn't take enough laws with regards to conditions and everything. And that's kind of turned sort of Denver into this smoky wasteland in which, people, bless you.
Bless you. That was a nice one.
People just don't know when to have discretion. I hear in Washington, it's a bit more, they do have a bit more discretion. But, when you're doing things like thinking that you can light up a joint while you're in your car, or that you can, just, leave marijuana candy. I have a big problem with this whole marijuana candy idea. Especially if there are kids in the house, you don't want your kid getting a hold of that and then getting the fear of some poor 6-year-old getting the fear. That would really suck. And it's not good for them at a time when they're still developing. I mean, that's definitely an adult's drug in that it can affect children because they haven't fully developed yet. So if you're going to legalize it, screw the candy, screw the the pre-made candy bars. I've heard I don't know if you used to watch the Mighty Boosh Twitchy.
No.
Or you've heard of it? No. It's sort of like, eat just one little bit of the bar of chocolate and see how you feel. Don't eat the whole bar of chocolate at once or you will see the devil. I mean, it's just a stupid idea. I think that if you're going to sell it, you sell it in leaf form. And if you really want to make that, then you learn to cook with it and you keep it away from your kids. Yeah, or you buy a vaporizer and do it that way. But I think if you normalize it too much, then people aren't going to have discretion.
Where we are now,
what TV show you were talking about? Where it's like, try this candy bar, but don't eat too much because then you'll see the devil.
Well, the thing is a lot of people don't realize that there's a given amount. Let's say you got like Hershey bar. Each of it has segments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a Rolo. There's like one Rolo, and there are several Rolos in one. Well, each of these would have a certain amount of THC. And some people have been known to eat the entire candy bar rather than just eating one bit at a time because they don't see like a piece of advice on the back because they're just too stoked that they have a weed candy bar. So they, they'll eat like, the whole thing rather than one little piece. And then before you know it, they'll be on the floor, feeling like Sid Barrett in the last year. You're
going to feel bad.
You're going to feel really paranoid. Nothing is going to bring you nothing.
Nothing
is going to bring you up. No,
no.
What TV show was that on? I don't. What TV show was that like? Was it on Cartoon Network at some point?
It may have been because Cartoon Network is like Stoner Central these days after like 9 p.m. Robot Chicken definitely changed all that. It's like, okay, yeah, it's for the kids. SpongeBob and Dexter's Laboratory, and now it's Robot Chicken. Yeah.
But
Snippy had some interesting bits.
We had we have the candy bars and the cake and everything. You can think of everything you can do with weed and with hashies, and we have it here. The point is, of course, that we've been doing this for 40 years. There's a cultural difference, If I would buy a candy bar with hashies in it, I wouldn't put it in the drawer where the candy is.
Well, yeah, I mean, there has been that sort of generations of trial and error. And
Yeah,
also, I think if you're going to legalize, you need to, first of all, I think the government needs to not get too tax happy on the product. Otherwise,
yeah.
people will just be going back to the drug dealers.
The only way to get this done properly, I think, in your case, in America, is to do it step by step. First, legalize it. You can get it in these shops, nowhere else, and only the pure stuff, right? And
Mhm.
from there on, you go on, because whether you smoke weed or you smoke hashish, it doesn't matter. It's the same. It's the same stuff. It's the same shit.
And also educate.
And
Educate
educate. Yeah,
on
educate. Yeah.
educate on what it does to you. Educate on, be aware of these things. Educate to
Do
say,
not ever drive,
yeah,
for example.
driving is bad. Um, operating heavy machinery is bad. If your
Yeah.
friend says, "Hey, we just smoked some weed. You want to go and test out my AR-15?" That's a bad idea.
That's a bad idea.
That's,
But and then again, if you're 40 years in, I see people here, and this is real good technicians smoking a joint before they start because they're used to it and they can concentrate and they do their best work when they're stoned. But it's because we know what we are doing with the shit.
it's like it's your tolerance level. I mean, if
Again, yeah.
if you have one glass of whiskey and never drank whiskey before, you're going to feel pretty
slightly,
lit up.
yeah.
But and that's the thing is, like, I remember in the UK, you would have people, they would roll. It costs more in the UK, so they would roll it in tobacco.
Yeah.
And then they would never touch like a full-on joint because they know that they would be away with the fairies, very, very evil fairies, if they sort of had the whole thing. So you also have to educate how much is too much. Don't let your id take over.
Yeah. It's like people don't recognize that just a quarter of a gram is enough.
Yeah.
So it's really enough. Don't do more.
It is. And even then, maybe you should just, I don't know, put it in a vaporizer and see what happens. Just a little bit, and just take a small bit, and because that's
and let it come over you. Don't think after 10 minutes. I don't feel anything yet.
Yeah,
wait 10 minutes more. Just wait.
Yeah, there's some creepers. There's some creepers out there.
Yeah.
When it comes to the marijuana candy, it's like there's this is last year, March 27, 2015. Dirt depth in Colorado to marijuana edibles. So it seems like people are dying from this stuff.
No.
Plus, I do remember a guy committing suicide after
Probably.
It's very, very, very improbable. If you digest marijuana, hashish, weed, and you eat too much, you'll throw it out. You'll just puke it out.
You'll puke, or you'll feel like you're going to die. Then you pass out, and then
you'll puke.
Wake up really, and you'll probably puke. But yeah, you're just going to wake up very groggy. I mean, the thing is when you see stuff like on Dr. Drew, which got canceled because, well, he asked questions about Hillary's health, but he was saying that, look, don't blame it on marijuana, because this one guy, he was sort of arrested for killing his wife. And what was happening is he claimed that he was on marijuana. But what happened is he had a recent injury where he had essentially become addicted to prescription medication.
Yeah.
And what happened was it seems that he was going through withdrawal from the prescription medication. And not only did he manage to get a hold of a little bit, but he decided, okay, I'm going to boot it up with some marijuana. So he actually mixed drugs, and it was probably really more the opiates that did it, anything else. So you got to be careful with your chemistry. And I remember this other story where this one guy who was writing for the Sun of all places, where, I mean, in the UK, there's this obsession that marijuana somehow causes schizophrenia and causes murderous behavior, which is all a bunch of BS. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it's under very distinct circumstances. And there was this one tabloid, not the Sun, which tried to say, oh, or rather, this guy was writing for the Times and was discussing the Sun. So he's saying, you know, the Sun was saying that this guy killed people after, reefer madness and everything, not mentioning the fact that the guy had about 5 pints of lager, 8 shots of whiskey, and he was already jacked up, and he was in the middle of a bar fight before coming over and already being in a mood. It had nothing to do with the marijuana. It had to do with all of these other factors and everything. You won't turn into, you know, some guy on PCP or even synthetic marijuana, which is a big problem in our country, where you're jumping up on top of a car naked with a samurai sword saying that you are the reincarnation of Miyamoto Musashi. So, you know, I mean, it's very much overplayed. A lot of this is this puritanism from these people who essentially don't want you smoking, don't want you drinking, I guess, and they don't even want you going to church anymore, because a lot of these people are coming from the liberal left. They basically just want you, I don't know, growing your garden, caring about the earth, and voting for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So
in the article you linked in is 2 more cases. One took a leap from a Denver hotel balcony after eating pot-infused cookies. Well, where did the pot came from? Was it pot? Was it indeed synthetical? I don't know. Marijuana intoxication, significant factor in his death. And then Christine Kirk was shot and killed by Richard Kirk, and she had called 911 to report that her husband was experiencing hallucinations after taking marijuana candy with prescription medicine.
Medicine.
There we go. Yeah, that's not going to work. Don't do that.
And what is it with synthetic marijuana and everybody wants to jump out of a fucking building? I've read that on a couple. I think Tosh.0 actually had a video of somebody who just did some K2, and it's like going, "Everybody watch me!" And he like jumped out of the second floor.
Yeah, there was a whole rash of people transported to a hospital a couple of months ago on K2.
Yeah,
that's not good. Don't touch that.
Yeah, not even once. It's just like with Flacca, not even once.
Not even once.
Not even once. With straight, and that's the thing is, if the government actually legalized it, they could keep an eye on what goes into it and what doesn't go into it.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it would make it safer than buying it from some guy on the street. Because I used to know guys in college who this one time they bought from this guy that they didn't even know. I wasn't smoking marijuana at the time, but I had heard the story from them afterwards. And the guy sold him marijuana laced with PCP.
Oh, nice.
He said it was like the worst experience of his life ever. And, if you had government regulation, you wouldn't have to deal with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of, the Prohibition era with, I think it was Al Capone. I think it's Al Capone.
You get Al Capone.
When alcohol was illegal and everybody was doing it. However,
and you get bad stills.
Illegal. Yeah. It puts people in a position where they could taint the drug, where they could do something so that the alcohol is as would if the government was regulated.
Yeah.
Well,
and strangely enough, the reason why marijuana was made illegal was basically because alcohol had become legal once more, because you had all of these prohibition agents wondering what the hell they were going to do now. And the guy who was head of that agency, a guy called Harry Anslinger, didn't want to lose the government funding. Yeah. So what he did was he got together, especially with William Randolph Hearst, who thought that hemp was going to sort of interfere with his timber industry. And they kind of worked together. It was complete and utter case of corporatism, of this crony capitalism.
Fascism.
Yeah, well, that's what corporatism is.
Yeah.
And, just corporatism with a billy club or gun.
Mhm.
And what happened was that they managed to convince FDR, who was not the brightest guy. He was a good leader, but he was very impressionable. And they were able to make it illegal, and they turned it into this horrid drug of jazz musicians who would seduce your virginal daughters, and everything like that, and that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, so not only is this you trying to get a hold of taxpayer money to keep this illegal, you just had to inject that racism into it as well to
Nice.
punctuate it. Great job there, Harry. I hope you burn in hell.
But if
leftists overcompensating, it's probably why the leftists like this is racist, sexist, misogynist, because there is the little history there.
They're very good at that.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, look at Hillary Clinton. Despite having smoked weed in the past, I mean, come on, you tell me that she never lit up along with Bill Clinton? Give me a break. I mean, she was probably stoned when she screwed up that whole Watergate thing. Yeah. But I forgot to read that part of the Constitution, man. But in any case, I mean, still here she is talking about how she's going to enforce marijuana laws. Her daughter saying marijuana kills, whereas you have somebody like Ted Cruz, who's supposed to be the square, saying the following: you know what? I don't support it, but at the same time, if states want to legalize it, I'm not going to get in their way because I support the Constitution. Or you have Donald Trump going like, you know what? I don't do drugs myself. I just have a little bit of wine and communion and everything. But, I think we have to look at it. So it's sort of like, it really makes you think about Hillary Clinton. Is she really this woman of the people, or is she just this government-heavy Puritan? But go ahead.
It seems like Hillary Clinton is more of a Republican and Donald Trump is more of a Democrat.
Well, that's why
Hillary Clinton is like against pots. Trump is like for states' rights, and it's kind of like, well, I mean, is she really just that she started off as a Goldman Sachs girl or a
Goldwater girl.
Goldwater girl, and she was a Republican once.
But the thing is, with Barry Goldwater, Barry Goldwater was very much a classical liberal libertarian, and people were scared to death of him because of that, because they had all been brainwashed by the New Deal. They liked the idea of the Great Society, and they thought that Goldwater, who really had a lot of sort of Ayn Rand ideas along with constitutional ideas, chances are he really, I don't really remember him, reading about him. I wasn't alive in 1964, but he was much more inclined towards what the original meaning of the Constitution was, and marijuana wasn't in it. When Hillary did all of this stuff, chances are she just, I don't know, she's one of these sort of people who was a hippie in the 60s, who then turned all like, oh, you can't drink, you can't smoke, because I did all that stuff, and I don't want you doing what I did. It's kind of like what I call the St. Augustine complex. Before St. Augustine became a Christian, he was like a party animal. But then once he became a Christian, he was like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do this. And it's sort of like, well, can't we figure that out for ourselves?
Yeah, I just remembered. There's one. I'm not a John Oliver fan, but he did a skit on Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand. How is this still a thing? It's 2 years ago, and it's great. How is she still a thing? Why are we still speaking about this woman?
Well, yes.
Really great.
The thing is with Ayn Rand is she had some interesting ideas, but as a person, she was, to a lot of people, insufferable, because she grew up in the Soviet Union. So she kind of had this mentality that much like the Soviets that she hated, that if you didn't agree 100% with her, she would have no time for you. And she lost a lot of friendships via that. And she was almost very dogmatic because she had come up with this philosophy of objectivism. I do think she had a lot of good points, but I think when she kind of removes the idea of morality from these points, that you do have problems, and it turns into Andrew Ryan from BioShock.
Yeah, I really think that capitalism and Western capitalism especially really needs more morality. If you don't, well, you get into trouble. You get a Hillary Clinton.
Well, the thing is in a perfect capitalist society, that's where the free market kind of corrects itself, because if people see that you are not acting the way they want you to act, if you're not selling if you're selling a dangerous product, or you're not, or you're basically just being a dick about it, then a lot of people will try and look for alternatives. Yeah. And the thing is people say, oh, we should get the government to come in. And the problem is with getting the government to come in, the government should really just be a referee to make sure everybody plays fair. But sometimes you get people like Bill Clinton talking about how, oh yeah, the government can work with business to create a truly prosperous society. And
oh my God, that's a great bill.
That was a great bill.
You sound just like him.
She looked 18. Oh, come on, man.
Oh, that's so good. You sound just like him.
Remember the 90s? Remember prosperity? Oh, come on. Hillary ain't so bad. I mean, sure, I haven't actually spent any time with her, for more than 6 hours a day, because seriously, her voice to me is like nails on a chalkboard.
You should like do some comedy, man.
You know what? That's the thing is I'm good when I'm not in front of people, because sometimes I just fall flat.
I mean,
yeah.
If you did that on stage, everybody would laugh, because you sound just like him. Just get a get like a gray curly wig and
well, thank you. I actually have curly hair, so chances are all it will take is some hairspray and some talcum powder, and I could probably do it. I'd probably need a prosthetic nose, and if I want to do modern Bill Clinton, I'd probably have to just not eat for a while to look like a certain someone has sucked out the very being of my soul. But
I don't think she sucks at all.
Well, that's the thing. There's a little bit left. She needs that little bit in order to keep him saying, "Hey, it's me, Bill. Remember me? Remember Nana's? Remember Spice Girls? Oh, Spice Girls." But in any case, it's the problem with today's capitalism is whenever the government comes in, especially with the introduction of these crazy income taxes, you have a lot of the more profitable companies going into DC and lobbying and making sure that they are the favored businesses over anyone else. And this is how you get monopolies. This is how the airline industry, why 15 years ago, you could get a plane ticket to London for $300. Mm-hmm. And now it's well above 1,000. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Airline monopolies. And that's the thing is, as soon as the government steps in, you see the prices go up, and they do it on ostensibly to be, the watchers, but it never works out.
That's really strange that you would say that, because I can get a ticket to New York from Brussels airport for $400.
Well, it's a bit different.
Wait, it's not a one-way trip. So it's actually 200.
No, I know, but that's the thing with the EU. That was one of the things that they really used to keep people in Brexit. It's sort of like we keep, say, our airline prices artificially low. So if you do want to go on that one holiday for the year, it won't impoverish you.
It's actually, we have a lot of competition. Price fighters, comparing sites. People are really stingy with the money when they want to fly,
Okay, actually, yeah, you're right. Now that I remember, there were a lot of airlines. Like if you didn't want to do British Airways, you could always do Air France or Thomas.
Or Ryanair or KLM.
Oh God, Ryanair. Or Sleazy Jet.
Sleazy Jet and anything, But if I take, let's say, From Brussels, it's a Spanish company.
Hmm.
The national Spanish.
Alianca.
Sorry?
Alianca?
No, not Alianca.
Iberia.
Iberia. Yeah.
Alianca's Colombia. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's Iberia Airlines, and they do it for $400, and it's a retour. What do you call it?
Well, yeah.
It's a two-way trip.
I mean, the thing is, over here, yeah, then okay, you are describing a different situation from here because with all the lobbying in Washington, they have allowed a lot of these airlines to merge, like US Air with Continental, or you know, this airline with that airline. So you really only have 3 or 4 major airlines.
Yeah.
So,
but it's really weird because we have here KPN is the Dutch telecommunication service, right?
Yeah.
They own Telfort. They own a couple of others, and if I take a DSL line, VDSL, from KPN, I will pay about 55 euros. I have it from Telfort, which is KPN, and it costs me 22 euros.
Yeah, and basically, but the thing is they do charge you a bit more than that. For example, you know, I think at one point Ryanair was throwing around the idea that you should have to pay €1 anytime you wanted to go to the bathroom, or you pay ye gods for your luggage, or you also have to work in airport taxes. So you know, it always. You know, it depends, but it's still far less than over here, which is say like $1,200.
But it's a lobbying. It's they know who to buy, really.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. And you know, just to bring it back to Trump, that's one of the things I liked hearing from Trump. Whether or not he'll actually do it if he gets elected is another thing. But he was sort of introducing that whole, Ren, I don't know if you heard about the whole ethics thing about sort of keeping lobbyists or trying to get lobbyists away from sort of the government. I think if he gets elected and tries that, it's going to be, you know,
he'll get shot.
It's going to be blood in the streets, but at least if the blood is being shed, it will be by K Street lobbyists. So
yeah, it would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it would be nice if we could get rid of the lobbyists, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I mean, you know, I was considering being a lobbyist, so
Well, you would have to be extraordinarily forceful with it in such a way that at the very best, if you did get it passed, you'd probably have what's happening with Obamacare right now, where you'd have a whole lot of people suing you.
Yeah.
But it's nice to think of. I think working towards something more like term limits would be a better idea.
By the way, back to the original topic, Chris Wallace, and here's a direct quote, Mr. Trump, Secretary Clinton, no, we need to move on to our final segments, and that's his national debt, which has not been until tonight. Our national debt as a share of the economy, our GDP, is now 77%. That's just the highest since just after World War II. But the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budgets says Secretary Clinton, under your plan, debts would rise to 86% of GDP over the next 10 years. Mr. Trump, under your plan, say it would rise to 105% of GDP over the next 10 years. Question is, why are both of you ignoring the problem? Mr. Trump, you go first. And I think it was a great thing to bring up. And if there's any one good reason to vote for Hillary Clinton, I mean, it would be that, you know, if there was that one out of all the horrible things she did, and, you know, she'll probably work English, she's probably lying to her teeth, but if there's one good thing to vote for Hillary Clinton, it will probably, as Chris Wallace mentioned, that it's, I will repeat this again. According to the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible federal budgets. It says Secretary Clinton, under your plan, the debts would rise to 86% of the GDP over the next 10 years. Mr. Trump, under your plan, they say 105% of the GDP in the next 10 years.
Well, okay. Actually, Twitch, can you do me a favor and field this? I just need to step away for about 30 seconds, and then I'll come back with an answer.
Oh, wow. Field this.
Okay, well, all right. Okay, I'll tell you
Oh
what.
my God.
I'll go first, and then I can handle, and then I just need to step away for, as I say, 30 seconds.
Mhm.
First of all, with regards to that, what they're really sort of, approaching is the tax cuts costs the government money.
Mhm.
And so they're really approaching it from something that is very sort of non-supply side economics, or what the Democrats like to call trickle-down economics, to give it a bad name.
Mhm.
The whole philosophy is that, this assumes that the economy isn't really going to grow all that much at all, even with this tax cut. But the whole philosophy of supply side economics is the following, if you do it right, of course. But it's the following. Basically, let's say you give an across the board tax cut for everybody. What happens is your richer people are not necessarily going to hoard this money, your business owners, whatnot. That would be stupid.
Mhm.
Instead, they're not going to have to hoard the money because they don't have to pay. A lot of these people save over money just in case the taxes get raised. What is going to happen is that they'll be encouraged to grow their business. And instead of people, say, being on unemployment or being on government assistance, they'll be making money in some place like the private sector. And if you do that, then what you will do is you'll have more people making money and maybe investing some of that money. So you'll actually have a larger amount of revenue to collect than, say, if you don't change the tax system and just keep taxing at the same rate. So I think they don't really add into that the fact is if you actually grow the economy, it might not necessarily be 105%. It might be a smaller number. Moreover, if you're going to do this, you got to cut back on a lot of the government waste. You got to cut back on a lot of the government problems because, let's face it, you are still going to have to pay for Social Security. You are still going to pay for Medicaid, and you also are going to have to pay for Medicare. So you have to do it very, very carefully. But I think a lot of the times these nonpartisan offices tend to be a tad partisan in their economic understanding. I mean, I'm more of a history professor. I'm not like a straight up economist, but I'd probably be much more like Hayek than John Maynard Keynes. So, I mean, I think that whenever somebody says, oh, if you use a tax cut, that just helps out the rich, it's not going to help out the poor. I'm not sure about that because I'll tell you something. I have 5 jobs right now.
5 jobs.
I have five part-time jobs right now.
Whoa.
And I still get 20% taken out of all 5 of those paychecks. And I wouldn't mind my taxes being cut. So, I don't have to have 5 jobs. I could maybe just have 3 jobs. I mean, I'm only making something like, as I say, probably at best $40,000 a year, which in the States isn't that much these days. It used to be all the money in the world, but I wouldn't mind, getting some of my money back and not having, say, this federal withholding tax or FICA tax or, Medicare, Medicaid tax or Social Security tax. I mean, I do pay into those. I don't have a problem. But I would like to be able to keep some of my money and maybe save it up to invest in something else. That's just my belief. But I think that you do have to cover costs. You can't do it willy-nilly. You have to do it very carefully. You have to be careful with the math, but you also have to be honest with the math. And the thing is Hillary Clinton, when she was in that debate, she was not honest with the math. When she was saying that it would not add a penny to our debt, If you believe that, I got some swampland in Florida I can sell you for a song. It's, it's just that was one of the most blatant lies I heard in the entire debate. It was bullshit. Anytime a Democrat says it won't cost any extra money, it usually ends up costing all of this extra money. I mean, Obamacare costs so much more. And basically all of us are paying, I'm on Obamacare, and basically I'm paying more for a plan where I get less service.
Oh my goodness! Is Obama the new Hoover? Like how there was Hooverville. Wasn't he like the most hated president? Like President Hoover. Wasn't he the most hated president we ever had?
Hoover was also a progressive. That's the problem. Hoover was also a progressive. All of these people are progressive, where they think that the government can somehow fix it, and the thing is that when the Great Depression came in, for a short time, the stock market actually recovered and everything was okay. But it's when Hoover introduced his administrations, and you had that combined with Smoot-Hawley, that Protectionism Act, that everything went to shit.
Oh, by the way, now that you brought up Medicare, Medicaid, I wanted to get to Chris Wallace other statements, and it's the last screenshots I have. Chris Wallace says, quote, "One last area I want to get in with you on this debate is the fact that the biggest driver in our debts is entitlements, which is 60% of all federal spending. Now the Committee for Responsible Federal Budgets has looked at both of your plans, and they say neither of you have serious plan that is going to solve the fact that Medicare lots of money in the next 2020s. Social Security is going to run out of money in the 2030s, and at that time, recipients are going to take huge cuts in their benefits. So, in effect, the final question I want to ask you in the regard is, and let me start with you, Mr. Trump. Would Mr. Trump make a deal? Or would Mr. Trump make a deal to save Medicare and Social Security debts include both tax increase and benefits cuts? In effect, a grand bargain of entitlements. And Mr. Trump loves deals, but I thought he brought up a good point. This has also been brought up in the GOP debates. That's they were just talking about how, we're running out of Medicare in the we're running out of Social Security in the 2030s. I thought that was really good to bring up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know what Hillary Clinton's response was, which was basically, "Oh, we're going to be fine," but I forget what Donald Trump's response was. Do you remember? Can you just summarize it?
I don't remember either because I didn't take a screenshot.
Okay. Well, with regards to Medicare and Medicaid, yeah, those things. When people have paid into those things, that is when, just like they paid into unemployment, you can't have all the baby boomers pull the ladder up after them. But again, I'm thinking that what you need is, in order for that to be paid, you need to really have a lot more than 1% GDP in order to generate some more money into the economy. You need to get rid of a lot of these departments that we probably don't need. A lot of these federal departments that we probably don't need. You really need to cut down on government so you can direct that just straight in to Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. You also need to cut down on a lot of Medicaid and Medicare fraud, as well as Social Security fraud. And with regards to Social Security, sooner or later, you're going to have to raise the entire the retirement age, because when it first came in 1932, it wasn't even meant to be a retirement program. It was meant to be more of a supplementary type of program that you would get in your old age. it was not meant to set you up for life. And what happened was that they didn't really know what age to pick. A lot of people said, oh, well, maybe we should make it 70 years old. And people say, oh, well, no, then they'll just think that that's ridiculous, because who in 1932, let's face it, prohibition has just ended. You know, we drink brandy like water, and we smoke cartons of unfiltered Camels per day. So who's going to live to 70? And other people say, well, why not 60? And people said, well, that's too young. So 65 was just kind of negotiated on, because a lot of people tended to either live to that or not live to that. But now that everybody's eating better, they are not smoking, they're still drinking, but you know, they've switched from the spirits to the wine or something like that. But they're living longer. And with your baby boom after World War II, when you had sort of a minor shrinkage in population, but nevertheless this psychological belief that you had to have babies upon babies, you know, essentially all of these people, none of them are dying before 65 unless they hit it a bit too hard in the 70s. And, you know, so you have to raise the retirement age, I think, at some stage.
Yeah, we had to do that here. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that it's a problem where you really have to look at the big picture and see what can you do here, what can you do there. I mean, I think a lot of this is we want immediate short-term, you know, immediate solutions that only work in the short term, or just sound really good so we can all feel better about ourselves.
Yeah,
but
a big plan.
Exactly. But we actually have to do something, and some people are going to have problems with it, but you really just have to communicate to everybody that, you know, look, lowering taxes, you know, a lot of people won't like that because some of them, you know, like not being in the workforce. Well, you just have to convince them, look, guy, you're at least going to have to, you know, get a part-time job to pay the rent.
Yeah.
You know,
at least try to get a job.
Yeah, at least try to get a job. There are some people who aren't even looking for a job. And that's what makes this 5% unemployment number so ridiculous, because they don't even add in the people who aren't even actually in the workforce right now, which is a ridiculous number. I think, you know, something like 1/3 of all people of working age are not in the workforce, and instead they're on unemployment or they're in entitlement programs that, you know, if they're able-bodied and there are jobs available, you need to get them out and, you know, working. I'm not saying, life needs to be their job, but they actually have to, you know, bring something in. But at the same time, you know, you have to lower taxes so that a lot of companies will start hiring, and so that once they get a job, they'll actually be able to keep more of their paycheck.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I was just thinking of something. Rutsenal, you sound a lot like the Justicar. Like you and the Justicar, you two sound alike.
The Justicar is a lot smarter than I am. And he's a lot wittier too. I've traded tweets with the Justicar, you know, and sometimes he's liked my stuff. Sometimes he goes, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, I watch his videos, and he is, you know, he's got some very good points. I don't agree with him 100%. For you know, example, like, I mean, I agree a lot with him on his politics. Definitely things like, you know, when he was talking about how, you know, if your solution to for your military is just to bomb everything, that's stupid. You know, you actually have to go in there with a strategy. I thought that was a very good idea. I agree with his Second Amendment ideas, and I think that he has you could tell that he's really sat down, done his homework, done the Constitution. His math is so much better than mine is. History is my thing. He's much better with math. Just about the only thing I disagree with him on is I'm not an atheist. That's fine by me, but you know, when he does those videos, I sort of like go, okay, I see where you're coming from. That's cool. I'm not one of those believers who believes in shoving my stuff down other people's throats, because that's dumb. You know, it was not my calling to be an evangelist. So, but other than that, you know, I do like Justicar's stuff. I like, by the same token, I like a lot of Thunderfoot's stuff. I love his science videos, but once he gets onto like these one or two issues I don't agree with, I just sort of like, okay, you know, I'll just show me more about how solar roadways suck. You know, that'd be great.
Yeah, I love solar freaking roadways. Anyway, I found the websites I was using, so I'll give you Donald Trump's answer and Hillary Clinton's answer since you asked for earlier. Donald Trump's answer: I'm cutting taxes. We're going to grow the economy. It's going to grow at a record rate. But that's not going to help on entitlements. Donald Trump is going to totally help you. And one thing we have to do, repeal and replace the disaster known as Obamacare. It's destroying our country and destroying our businesses, our small businesses, our big businesses. We have to repeal and replace Obamacare. You take a look at the kind of numbers that will cost us in 17. It's a disaster if we don't repeal and replace. Now it's probably going to die in its own weight, but Obamacare has to go. Its premiums are going up to 60, 70, 80%.
Well,
and they're going to go up and over 100%. And I'm really glad that the premiums have started. At least the people see what's happening, because she wants to make it even worse, and it can't get any worse. Bad healthcare at the most expensive price. We have to repeal and replace the Obamacare.
so he basically, yes, now that I remember, he's partly right. He was just really pushing Obamacare. And he's got a point there, because the thing is we already had Medicaid. We already had Medicare Part A, Medicare Part B. I mean, Bush brought in Medicare Part D, which was another entitlement that we had to, pay for, which it wasn't so much the Iraq War that killed us economically. It was Medicare Part D, because that was at a time when a lot of baby boomers were starting to hit their retirement age. So they, jumped on that like white on rice. And, you put Obamacare on top of this existing like above or alongside, and yes, our costs are ridiculous. And the thing is a lot of businesses, as I say, a lot of things like benefits packages, IRAs, they're disappearing because they can't pay for these things, because now they have to pay for Obamacare. I mean, the idea that everybody has to pay for everybody else's birth control, so I have a birth control plan even though I'm a guy, doesn't really make sense. The fact that somebody's kids are on their medical plan till they're 26 fucking years old. I mean, seriously, back in World War II, if you were 26 fucking years old, chances are you had already been working for a few years if you weren't fighting in a war, and you had already bought your own house, had your own car, and probably had a couple of kids. So I think that doesn't do anything for infantilizing our 20-somethings population. They do after college, I mean, let's face it, everybody has a right to do stupid shit in their 20s. But if you're not at least looking at something towards your future in the 20s, and you're still sort of living at mom's and dad's house, and that's what's happening with a lot of people now. It's not necessarily their fault. They don't necessarily want to live at mom and dad's house. That's what pissed me off about Hillary's whole basement dwellers bullshit. But the thing is that costs money too. I mean, that's the thing is with the Democratic Party now, they're promising you the moon, but they aren't coming up with any way to pay for it. I mean, Hillary was coming up with, free college. How the fuck will that happen?
Oh, she's just trying to copy Bernie Sanders.
Oh, I know.
Bernie Sanders says free college, and she knows it made him popular, so now she's just repeating everything he says.
But at the same time, I know.
The thing is, I don't think anybody in their 20s wants to live with mom and dad.
No, they don't.
I think people are having a hard time a job, and which is why Donald Trump is appealing. Donald Trump is saying he's going to bring back the jobs. He's going to bring back jobs from Mexico. He's going to bring back jobs from all these other countries.
Oh yeah.
Because, I'll say this. Let's look at my dad, for example. My dad is hardworking. He was working as a construction worker for years. Then people started hiring all of these illegal Mexicans. And when these illegal Mexicans, they put my daddy out of work. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of
No, I know.
like nobody wants to live with their parents, but there needs to be plenty of jobs to go around where people could go and just get a job, as long as they're looking. People should be able to find work, and get
And
that.
And just as I just want to make one more point before I have to dive in for 20 seconds. And I've kind of been monopolizing the conversation. I'm sure in the chat it says this guy will not shut the fuck up. But, basically, shut the fuck up, dude. You don't know everything. But the thing is I'm not a millennial myself, but I would imagine millennials to be pretty damn frustrated right now when, Hillary on one hand is saying you can have free college, because a lot of these millennials are already out of college and they have student debt, and they're probably asking, forget about college, what about student debt? I got this freaking degree where the market is saturated for these majors because all of my professors were bullshitting me, and now I gotta, I don't know, work in Starbucks or some shit. And at the same time, I don't like living with my parents, but I think one of the big sort of stereotypes of millennials is that they don't seem to give a shit about whether they live with their parents or not. And I think that is kind of a bit of a generalization that's a bit unfair to millennials. That's all.
People care. I just think that there's not a good enough jobs going around. Not only that, but I think another problem is all of these bullshit college courses, like gender studies. It's kind of like people are going to college for gender studies. And Sargon did a video on it where he found a blog post from a person who took gender studies and regretted because he couldn't. It was really a blog found where he was just complaining, like, I wasted my parents' money on gender studies and I can't find a good job. It alienated him from his family. It's kind of a lot like his family didn't want to invite him to parties anymore, and it's kind of like he couldn't get a good job, and it's kind of a lot like he was an embarrassment to his family. Like his family didn't want to bring him up. Took up such a stupid course, and it's kind of a lot like, I hate, Dekati and some people from the feminist camp feminism says it's a free speech issue, but when these people get out of college and they can't find a job, because many of them can't, like some people are lucky enough to work for the Guardian or which seems to be going out of business because nobody wants to read their bullshit articles. So even the lucky ones who got to work at the Guardian are running out of luck because they're now begging for money because it's bullshit. It's kind of like these people take these bullshit college courses, and it's kind of like they may have to live with their parents, and it's kind of, but they have went to college. Usually, the way things were back when I was little, or probably before I was born, it's like you go to college, you get a good job. As long as you go to college, you're gonna go and get a good job. And now they're teaching all of this bullshit, and I mean, I've read this from like recent.com, how they were like replacing math, like math is no longer a requirement, but social justice is.
Yeah.
In terms of social justice to graduate, but math isn't required to graduate. And I believe it's the University of Massachusetts, UMass. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
like the fuck, you need 3 terms of justice to graduates from college, and it's kind of like these people are ruining college kids. They are coming out radical, like the
Well,
and the black guy in DePaul University who took the
which
mic
banned Milo. Yeah.
took the mic from Milo Yiannopoulos, yelling at him, screaming at him, making dress like the guy threatened to beat Milo. And these kids, they're coming out of college radicalized, and they take gender studies, and they don't know what to do with their lives. They don't, and it's kind of like if the Democratic Party is trying to turn each and every single state into Chicago.
Well, yeah. Do you want to field that, Twitch? I'll be
Yeah.
right back.
The fun thing about that is what happened around, I think it was June, July, with a couple of interns who tried to change corporate policy because they weren't exactly happy with the dress code, and they were all fired. They cannot work for that company anywhere anymore. So they'll run into walls. They'll just, it's such a shame. They learn exactly the wrong stuff. They don't learn what to do, and they don't learn to respect the people who pay them. So they will go running into walls, and they will learn that way, I think. If you never hear no, you don't know what no is, right?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
But let me think about this for a moment. I saw something else about this. In Australia, Victoria, did you get that story about social justice, where boys age 5 are being taught that they are bad people? It's horrible. Peach Bailey made a video about it, and someone else too, where they get a curriculum in which the little boys, really 5-6 years old, are told that they are that they should feel guilty. They have all this privilege, and people. It's a shitstorm over there right now.
Yeah, Sargon's covered things like that. Hey, Ro, you're back?
I am. I have returned. Thank you. I just needed to, check something downstairs.
Welcome back, Ro.
Thank you.
Well, I think it'll sort itself out. I have a son. He's 16, and he doesn't take any bullshit. He gets that from his mother, who's really not the bullshit type.
Good woman.
Good woman. Yeah, my ex.
Oh.
Yeah.
My bad.
No. She's a good woman. We were just not meant to be together. But she's very clear on where she stands, and I think if anyone would tell my son that he's a rapist, he just doesn't know it yet. It would just look really funny. What? He's very cool about that kind of stuff. So, and I don't think he's the only one. It's the generation that came right after us, Roy and Tal.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, yeah, I went to college sort of in the 90s. My first year was tells you how old I am. Was fall of '94.
Mhm.
And as part of our requirements, we had to take these race, class, and gender courses, and they were relatively new. So what would happen was we would take them, and the only thing we were united in our diversity, Black, white, Indian, Hispanic, Jewish, you know, Muslim, what have you, was that these people were full of shit, and we couldn't wait to sell our books for beer money back to the bookstore, or just burn them on general principle. And these were not Ayn Rand or Klansmen or anything like that. They were just like, why the fuck are we taking this? I don't need to take this. I was always told to follow things like the golden rule, where you treat people the way that you want to be treated. Yeah. And the definition of respect is that you have to get it in order. In order to get it, you have to give it. Yeah. But these guys were all about this. You know, this was when the grievance industry was in its sort of toddler years. Yeah. And what happened was these people sort of, you know, there were enough people that they brainwashed, enough people who were these artsy-fartsy, well, not artsy-fartsy, but more sociology, gender studies, these fucking bullshit courses that, you know, I mean, I majored in history, and that's useless enough, but at least I managed to find some gainful employment with it. But 5 jobs, but that'll tell you something, boys and girls. You know, well, even if I went to law school right now, there's actually such a glut of lawyers that you even find lawyers that are employed today. But the thing is it's all these people with these useless majors, and the only way they could really get into something was to do something like this. So, and of course, they're going to feel like, oh, I worked so hard in college, and now, you know, I can't find a job. So, of course, they're already set up to teach a course like this. They already have that mindset.
That's another thing that
useless in real life, because they're taking gender studies, which is like a useless major, and social justice is being required, which focuses on grievance, you know, like this grievance culture where, you know, you use, well, not you, but I mean, you know, your ancestors were slaves, and let's all forget about the Irish. Let's forget what the Irish went through. Let's just focus.
Let's forget about the Middle Eastern slave trade in sub-Saharan Africa that came first, and actually enslaved just as many people as the Atlantic slave trade did. And all the Atlantic slave trade did was the African middlemen who traded in these slaves just saw another potential partner.
Yeah, and let's
and people don't learn that. Instead, they just tell Black people to grieve over slavery. They tell women to grieve over, you know, whatever women would do. Because I mean, I'm getting mixed messages. I'm getting one type of history from feminists, and I'm getting another type of history from Karen Strong, and you know, it's like you get one type of history from like TLD or Karen Strong and those type of people. You're getting another type of history from, you know, feminists. So I don't even know what type of things women go through, because I'm getting mixed messages.
Well, and that's not to say that's not to say that racism does not exist in this society, but the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to actually do something to fight it in order so that we can have sort of equality of opportunity and strive towards where everybody has a proper chance and is properly educated? And at least if they say, well, I tried, but I did my best, rather than it's somebody's fault that I failed. I mean, that's the thing is it more of, you know, it's sort of like, are you going to do something to fight this and to eradicate it, or are you just going to kind of keep it around to use as a billy club with whomever you don't agree with?
Yeah, but again, I think that the Democratic Party just is trying to turn every single city and every single state into Chicago because Chicago has like the strictest gun laws, but like the worst gun violence ever. And I think Hillary Clinton was like laughing at that, and I don't know why she was
He
laughing at that.
did laugh at the most inappropriate times, like
Yeah.
that one time when he was going like, "You're taking money from countries where women are oppressed and gays are being thrown off buildings," and she just
She
smiles right at that
smiled.
moment,
Yeah.
and it's sort of like that evil fucking grandma smile, like, "Come into my house, Hansel. Come into my house, Gretel. I have candy here. I'm going to eat you." You know, I mean, and she did that the same thing right after doing the whole partial birth abortion thing, and it's sort of like, Hillary, you're just smiling at the wrong fucking times here. This
Yeah,
is at least.
Hillary Clinton might be like a genuine like psychopath or sociopath. I mean, like you do know that people who get in Hillary Clinton's way mysteriously die, don't you? Like people are going over the mysterious deaths of all the people who got in Hillary's way, or the mysterious deaths of people who were about to testify against Hillary Clinton.
Well, to be fair,
Mysterious.
we hear, okay, I mean, I don't like Hillary at all, but to be absolutely fair to Hillary, we need actual evidence, and we need I mean, you hear the rumors and they keep coming back. I mean, seriously, I have not heard this much about Vince Foster since he offed himself in 93, God rest his soul. But the fact is we kind of need proof for that. Although, yes, it is kind of suspicious, and it does cause me to raise an eyebrow every so often.
22 people right now, right?
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I know. They just happened to all shoot themselves 5 times in the back of the head, or
Yeah.
they were all weightlift enthusiasts who nevertheless thought it was a good idea to take a 50-pound barbell and drop it directly on their face.
Yeah, and robbed and shot twice in the back, and still has his wallet and
That makes you
a
ask
very expensive watch.
That makes you ask questions. That makes you think that whoever
There
was
is-
doing that
there is
job made a
something,
a mess of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think that
You know, the hitman are, I think, the Democrats.
Well,
They're just not very good at their jobs.
Well, that's the thing. They need to go to some Russian mafia people. They'll do the fucking job right.
Yeah.
The thing is, Russian mafia are too much a bunch of capitalists to say, we're not working with a socialist motherfucker like you. You are the reason we fled the USSR.
yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like it makes me think that Hillary Clinton is a psychopath or social.
Well, she certainly has a problem with empathy, and I think this whole idea, whenever she comes out with reintroducing herself, and she always reintroduces herself in a different way to a different group, like
Yes.
to soccer moms, or to Latinos, or to African Americans. It's always always a false face.
Yes, it makes me think she's a sociopath, always like reinventing herself.
Well, the way
Empathy, I think that when gays are getting killed off buildings, or like laughing at the abortion thing, it makes me think that Hillary Clinton is a sociopath.
It's a smug smile. It's like, yeah, you're saying that, and we all know this isn't true. Ha ha, here he is again, making accusations. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, but like he is something true. Like when he was reading Podesta's emails.
Yeah. Well, I think
reading from WikiLeaks. These things we know are true because we read WikiLeaks.
But she denies it. It's a denying smile. I deny this. I smile because I don't think this is true.
But we know it is true because
we know it is true. That's why it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, personally, I don't believe in passing needless laws, but I think we should pass a law against whenever Hillary wants to use the word conspiracy.
Yeah.
Seriously, she's been using this fucking word for the last nearly 20 years. And usually whenever she says conspiracy, that's like, I don't know, a flag that it's not the right wing, it's her conspiracy that she's putting together that, once again, she's trying to deflect. I mean, this is one of those old Alinskyite bullshit rules for radicals tactics that even Socrates would have been able to spot from a mile away. But then again, he was all about reason, whereas Alinsky was all about gauging up people's emotions. He's a classic demagogue. But yeah, with Hillary, she was sort of smiling at the wrong times. And, you know, when she was on the plane, when somebody actually tried to ask her a question about sort of the bird dogging, and, you know,
away. I don't know anything about that. And
well, no, basically she, you know, while her campaign manager is passing, you know, this suspicious looking iPad to Andrea Mitchell, which she looks at and then asks a question directly after looking at it. But when somebody actually asks her an honest question, she says, okay, I'm not going to entertain every one of Donald Trump's conspiracies. You guys all enjoy the nice food and the, you know, and the, and the drink before we get to New York. And it's sort of like, oh God, you're not even hiding it that well.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter.
Go ahead.
Oh, I saw it on Twitter.
The video, yeah.
Did we ever discuss this off air? But did we ever compare the U.S. states to the fall of the Roman Empire off air? I mean, on air.
Well, the Roman Republic, and the thing is, Sargon of Akkad. Although I will say, Sargon, if for some reason you're listening to me right now, but you know, Sargon, you did use a bust of the Emperor Tiberius rather than Tiberius Gracchus. Just saying. But yeah, the thing is Tiberius Gracchus was trying to fight this establishment in the Senate that was becoming too comfy with that was coming way too comfy with their power. And they were less and less accountable to the people, because in order to have any position in government, you had to make nice with the Senate if you wanted your career to go any further. And in a culture that really was about accomplishment, and what Plato called a timocracy, that is a government run by the elites who are obsessed with their own honors. You have all these people saying, well, I have to glorify my family. Rome was a very family-centered environment, so I have to hold all of these offices. I have to, serve in these wars and win these battles. I have to pass these laws and negotiate these treaties and to glorify my family. In order to do that, if you want a chance at that, you had to go through the Senate. And the Senate was getting all these powers, which weren't previously really enumerated in sort of this unofficial Roman constitution, because they didn't have a written constitution like we do. They kind of did everything on precedent. And it was like a mixed constitution. Our constitution is based on the Roman Republic. But what's happening is when they're doing stuff like by the 140s, they're really taking advantage of their power to enrich themselves. And here's where that whole land crisis, Sargon didn't mention this, but, and I do like Sargon. I really appreciate his love for ancient history. I mean, I actually gave a link to one of my students when Sargon talked about Pyrrhus, because he did a really good job on him. But with the 130s, the Senate, the thing is they're getting a lot of land, a lot of slaves are coming in, a lot of money's coming in, but you're running into something called the land crisis. And what happens there is that in order to serve in the Roman army, you had to own land. This was before Gaius Marius lifted that sort of requirement. But what would happen is a lot of these farmer soldiers would go off and be away fighting either Hannibal or the Celtiberians in Spain, or Philip V of Macedon, or whomever, or Antiochus the Great. And they'd be away for a long, long time, or they'd be killed in battle. Either way, their farm, the business of their farm is going to suffer. It's going to go under, and it's going to get foreclosed upon and bought at rock bottom prices. And the people buying it at rock bottom prices were pretty much the senatorial class. And what happens is they don't keep the family that's on the farm. They get kicked off the land, and they basically said, I don't know, go to Rome, because slaves are taking your jobs now. So they get sent down to Rome, living on top of each other, where they're living near the Tiber River, which, by the way, was prone to malaria. So either they're dying of malaria or they're walking around with tertiary fever for the rest of their lives. And with all these slaves, you have more instances of slave revolts. And who's going to fight them? Because you're having things like a manpower shortage in the Roman army, unless these senators like fucking ninjas or something like that, where all 300 of them can take on like a Spartacus slave revolt, you're going to have problems. So when Tiberius Gracchus comes in, he's this, he and his brother Gaius are coming from the best parts of the plebeian aristocracy. Their grandfather was Scipio Africanus, who defeated Hannibal, you know, the great annihilator of the Second Punic War. They're related to this guy, that guy, all these guys. And they're very rich, very well-to-do. But Tiberius, who kind of had a falling out with the establishment after a badly run campaign in Spain, he sees what's happening with the people and decides he's going to run for tribune, because what was happening was the senatorial class is taking up all this land. And what they're doing is they're not enforcing old laws which said that you could only own so much land. That was a hangover from the monarchy days, where they didn't want any one person to build up too much land and build up a power base and try and make themselves a king. There was a law in the books that existed to keep this from happening. It said you could only own about the equivalent of 300 acres of land. And what happened was that a lot of senators would either, you know, own it through third parties, or they'd be caretakers, quote unquote, of the land for dead people. And they ended up really becoming magnates at the expense of everyone else. Now, you can turn this into a sort of a Marxist thing of, oh, it's concentrated too much in the hands of the few and everything. And that works on one level. On another level, if you're looking at it from a constitutional basis, these guys are bypassing the checks and balances of the Constitution because they're not enforcing the laws, because they had become the power. The consuls, who were the executive, couldn't check their power. The praetors, who were the judges, couldn't check their power. And the assemblies really couldn't check their power, not unless they wanted to sort of graduate upwards in the Roman governmental system. So what Tiberius Gracchus does is he basically comes in, and he actually resembles more Ted Cruz than Che Guevara, in that he comes in and he tries to re-propose these laws and say that, you know, any excess land you guys got should be put back into the public land and put back to people who want to have their own farms and want to be productive members of society. And what happens is, whenever they at first they tried to veto him. So he decided to respond. He was a tribune of the plebs, which had veto power. One of the other tribunes was basically bought and paid for by the Senate. So he decided to turn around and do the following. When his law wasn't being brought to vote because it had been vetoed first by another tribune, he went to the forum, and the guy stood up, the officiator stood up in the forum and says, can we open the markets? Tiberius Gracchus said, veto. Can we open the treasuries? Veto. Can we do this? Veto. Can I take a shit? Veto. And he could do that. And what he was basically doing was, I'm going to shut down the government until you bring this to a fucking vote. And that's what they had to do. And it's only after a lot of conspiring and a lot of twists and turns that the Senate, finally frustrated, they view him as a class traitor by this point. And they end up just, making up the story that he was going to make himself king. So they go out of a meeting of the Senate one day. They actually broke up the chairs that they were sitting on to pull the legs off to have clubs. And while Tiberius is giving a speech in the forum to the people, they just walk straight up to the rostra and beat the guy to death. And then they pass a law saying that everything they did was correct because they declared this state of emergency.
You know, it makes me think that, by the way, is
that's the short version.
Symbiosis system even working? Because it's like, I noticed that from watching Sargon's channel, they were talking about busing people around, and it's kind of like 100. I think it was like no 1.8 million dead people are voting, which is living people.
And you certainly had that in the Roman Republic as well. What you would also have is once generals became more successful, they would get a lot of land for their veterans in legislation. So whenever a vote came that these generals who were also politicians wanted passed, they'd have their big burly veterans show up and look all menacing, so they'd make sure that the vote would go their way. But yeah, I mean, if you look I'll shut up about the late Roman Republic like in a second. But the thing is their late republic was very much like this Chicago politics, which you're talking about.
Yeah, because like we have like 1.8 million dead people are busting people around, like going from state to state, voting. People are voting twice for the Democratic Party. It's like, you know, like people are talking about destroying Republican ballots, you know, like I saw this on Hunter Avalon's Twitter feed where somebody took screenshots of a person saying that they are destroying Republican ballots. You know,
it doesn't. Yeah, that's basically one of the things. I mean, one of the things about the 2012 election that everybody had a question about was in Florida, which Obama took. They looked at all the counties, and he's taking the Florida Panhandle, which, by the way, Florida, people think of Florida, they think of Miami. The rest of Florida is made up of some of the biggest rednecks in the entire country. I don't know if you can back me up here, Ren. I don't know if you've been to Florida. But, you know, the Florida Panhandle, it's one of the most sort of country, you know, shoot guns, drink beer, smoke a cigar, and vote Republican. And Obama's taking it taking the Panhandle in 2012. It just kind of doesn't add up. So, you know, there were a lot of questions about that election that were never covered because they needed the narrative of Obama getting that second term.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's kind of like how many Democrats are in the mass media. It's kind of like how the media is Hillary Clinton's crimes. Like the very few media that was talking about it, it's like Fox News. And if you listen to Fox News, people will laugh at you. But Fox News is probably one of the mainstream media actually bringing up Hillary Clinton's crimes. Other media like CNN and all these other mainstream media are covering up, hiding it. They're laughing at the possibility of the election being rigged, you know.
Well, at the same time, Fox News, it's not really about necessarily supporting things like the Tea Party that came out in 2009 or supporting Trump. It's about supporting the Republican establishment. And the only real people that you have kind of standing up for somebody like Trump are people like Hannity. And sometimes Hannity is a bit overly enthusiastic. I'm sure you've seen those memes on Twitter of Hannity being Trump's hand puppet or something like that.
Yeah, like Megyn.
Yeah.
Seems.
Well, Megyn Kelly has a pound. Megyn Kelly has a pound of flesh against Donald Trump. Ever since that debate, she made her. He rubbed her the wrong way. But as far as you know, commentators, I would say really only Lou Dobbs on Fox Business and you know, Hannity are probably like full in for him. You know, and there's a difference between that and say CNN, where everybody is basically a Clinton surrogate.
Yes, you know, like CNN and all these media, it's kind of like it's for Hillary. Like even when I was watching Saturday Night Live, they were much harder on Donald Trump than they were Hillary. They pretty much targeted Trump over and over and over again, and they barely touched Hillary, even though they're supposed to go after each of them 50-50.
They've never gone after. The thing is, I remember. That's one of the good things about being born in the 70s. You remember when Saturday Night Live was funny. But seriously, I remember Bill Murray. I've loved that man ever since I was a kid. You know, God save Bill Murray. But, you know, our century's Messiah. But what do you call? but the thing is they have always leaned left on Saturday Night Live. They were making, I mean, that's one of Chevy Chase's first big roles was when he played Gerald Ford, and he always seemed to fall down wherever he went. Ronald Reagan was either treated like this senile old fool or this Machiavellian bastard. I mean, go on YouTube and look up Dana Carvey, George Bush, and he was kind of this milquetoasty fool. And of course, Will Ferrell got famous playing, George W. and everything. So, I mean, and of course, Bill Clinton is always kind of this likable, sly dog, and Jimmy Carter's this well-meaning guy. And I have never actually really seen them make fun of Obama. Obama always has to look like the hero of the piece or the adult in the room. And of course, Hillary, they make fun of her sometimes, but for the most, it's always, she's kind of this misguided heroine that they ultimately support. So Saturday Night Live is, when it comes to politics, it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, it's kind of like they even made lights. I don't know how to put it, but it's kind of like I was watching Saturday Night Live, and you guys remember the original Willy Wonka in a Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder?
Hell yeah.
And how he falls, but he kind of does like a somersault
and then stands on his feet.
Yeah, and stands on his
Yes.
feet. Well, they had the fake Hillary Clinton do that. She's coughing, and she falls down, does the somersaults, stands on her feet, to do like a little for change.
It's not it's not comedy. It's basically being her sycophant.
It's just it's so annoying. It's so annoying because it seems like they're trying to help Hillary Clinton in a sense. And it's like, but when you look at WikiLeaks and the Podesta emails, Hillary Clinton is quite evil. I mean, when I'm looking at this, and it's kind of like these people are quite horrible, Like the things that they say, it's like, it's like I think Hillary Clinton said that she hates the common Americans,
Well, I think that Twitch can maybe back me up here, but when it comes to the entertainment industry, unless you're talking about the 40s, 50s, or early 60s, it's always leaned left. It always skews, it always, I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, this was a time, the 60s was a time when you had people like Jane Fonda and Paul Newman and Robert Redford standing up for causes and everything. And people like, I don't know, Steve McQueen were seen as kind of an anomaly because McQueen was a Republican who supported the Vietnam War. But the thing is he was more hard pressed to talk about politics because he didn't want to comment on it. But with a lot of celebrities, they kind of want to comment on everything under the sun, even though they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They just read it in the newspaper of their choice and they parrot it back, but they do it better because they can act.
Yeah, most of the media leans left, like the news, the entertainment, like the comedy, like everything is so left leaning. There's such a strong bias. It's kind of like the news is left, the comedy is left. There's
no way around it.
I cannot name one Republican comedian. I can't think of any Republican.
I can name Bill Burr, yeah. I can name some more neutral comedians like Jim Norton. Cause Norton's more like an old school Democrat where if he was hard pressed, he'd probably vote Democrat, but he's had a major problem like the social justice bullshit. He's like gone toe to toe with like Lindy West from Jezebel. That woman's insufferable. No sense of humor either. What do you expect from a woman who writes for The Guardian? But basically, there has been a monopoly. I mean, that's what makes Clint Eastwood such a hero to the right. I mean, he's not particularly right wing. He probably leans more libertarian, but but the thing is we love guys like that. We love guys like John Wayne. I mean, the thing is, this is why Team America was such a funny film, is because all of these celebrities walk around like they know everything, and it's really all they're showing off is their own narcissism, because a lot of them don't know what the fuck they are talking about. I mean, whenever I swear to God, I wanna just teleport to Leonardo DiCaprio and give him a smack whenever he starts talking about the environment. Whenever Matt Damon starts singing the praises of Howard fucking Zinn, this guy who was less historian and more ideologue, I want to smack him upside the head and tell him, read something else, you idiot. But the thing is they just control the media, and what they're trying to do, they know they're accessible to the public, so they're trying to get everybody on their side.
You know what I think is going to happen? You guys have seen Sargon of Akkad covering cults, right? Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Cover cults. It becomes more and more radical to the point it becomes more and more crazy. You saw that part too, like when he was covered cults. I guess even like in the more business type cults, it just becomes increasingly more and more crazy. And we're kind of seeing this, we're kind of seeing this like with Oscar is so wide. It's like Will Smith and his side being like, oh, the Oscars is so wide. And like I've read an article on my channel how that it's a black-white dichotomy, and that there needs to be more Hispanics winning awards. It could reach a point like the problem with cults is that it's an echo chamber, and when you have an echo chamber, you don't have like a conflicting view, so you become more and more radical. You don't be, the best thing about an opposing view is that it helps you. It helps lean to a more moderate direction. But when you are stuck in an echo chamber, it almost becomes like a purity contest, and Christians, they suffered a death back in the day in America, where it becomes a purity contest, who's more Christian than whom. And you see this with feminists, where it's like a contest among feminists. The purest feminists of them all. That's why there's infighting, kind of like with country living. I don't know if you saw that of This Week in Stupid, but it's about a group called Country Living, where feminists were like tearing each other apart. It's kind of like, every 5 seconds some blue-haired girl would be triggered, and it's like I would look at feminist groups.
Well,
feminist groups would be dead. These feminist groups would be dead as a doornail when I would look at them.
Well, with regards to Christianity, it depends on which Christians at what time. I mean, for example, if you were to look at the Massachusetts Bay Colony, where everybody was a Puritan, and you had this total society of Puritanism, it's kind of a hangover from the Roman Empire that any society needed to have a uniformity of religion. And in order for that to, but the thing is if you have that, religiously speaking, you're in an echo chamber. So you have people, again, like with purity, who's the best Puritan? Who's the most puritanical? Who's looking out for whom? And, who's lording it over whom? And of course, in sort of communist societies, like who's a better communist, or Nazi societies, who's a better Nazi, or who's like, who is weak towards this. And a lot of this goes back to puritanical societies. But when you mentioned echo chamber, what sticks out for me is the French Revolution, when what happened was all the opposing voices were killed off, because the most radical people found ways to get rid of people who were less radical than they were. And before you knew it, they were in their own echo chamber. And it was only when people got sick of all of the death being dealt out by the radicals that they finally decided to turn on the radicals. But, this was kind of the case during the Reign of Terror.
Yes, yes, that's the problem with cults. That's the problem with the media trying to have the left is trying to have the monopoly on the media, because in one hand you get what you want. You get Hillary Clinton president, you get Barack Obama president. You do get what you want when you have a monopoly, but people need to have a viewpoints to keep them moderate, because when people second guess themselves, it helps them be more moderate. It helps them see things from a more neutral standpoint, and they could come up with a more moderate decision. Whereas when you have the echo chamber, you try to be more and more per. And this is where Bernie Sanders shines. Bernie Sanders has pretty much always been a progressive his life, and people, true progressives like the Bernie supporters, they could see right through Hillary Clinton's bullshit, and this is where their echo chamber backfires on them, because now the true progressives don't see CNN as per enough. You're not a true progressive, and this is where they end up hurting themselves, because it's kind of like it's want, but when you do not live up to the purity that you set out for other people, you end up, screwing yourself over.
Yeah, every cult ends up eating itself.
Yeah, I was going to ask Twitch, have you really found anything similar in Dutch society?
We had the Protestant movement here. It was really Puritan. Calvinists. We still have the black stockings in some areas. There is a serious Bible Belt, and they really, in mentality, they are stuck somewhere in the 18th century, somewhere there. It's we take care of each other, and outsiders are not welcome, and it's very hard to get in. I'm not a Catholic, but I'm from a Catholic area. If I would go and live in say Urk, I would be an outsider. I would be an outsider for all of my life, and if I would go there when I was 20, and I lived there, and I get children there, they would be the children of the outsider.
Yeah, so you're kind of Candide in a way. Yeah, no, you got no argument for me. I'm Roman Catholic myself. So, yeah, what do you call? I didn't know that the black stockings were as... I had always thought that Dutch society was largely secularized. So
the society itself is secularized, yes.
But
totally.
No.
In politics, politics is completely separated from church. The church and state separation is strong, very strong.
No,
I know where you want to go with this.
Oh yeah, okay.
A lot of people believe, but won't show it. It's like a privacy thing. It's a private thing. I believe, and it's up to me to do something with that, and not up to me to convince you otherwise. I'm an atheist, and as the way I see it is, you can believe in God all you want, as long as you don't come at my door and try to talk me into it. I'm good.
Yeah, that's fair enough. As I say, as a religious person, I would subscribe to that same belief. I'm not here to shove my beliefs down your throat, just as long as you don't do mine. And there's lots more things to talk about than religion. So, Let's just talk about how good that episode of South Park was the other night.
I want to get to. There's something I want to get to. Kobe Productions. Cody Productions is in chat. He says, "I don't know if you guys talked about it. We haven't. But what do you think of Hillary talking about Russia and Russia hacking? Also, how do you feel about Putin?" And
oh wow,
a lot to say about that.
I'm going to need to get another beer for this Kobe production, but I've got a bit to say about this. I'll be right back. Give me about 20 seconds.
I'll say something. Okay, he asked 2 questions. I would do the first question first. What do you think of Hillary talking about Russia and Russian hacking? I think it's deflection, That's what I think it is when she's, like Russia hacking. Like, do we have any strong, hard evidence that it's Russia? Now, if we have strong evidence, then it's different. But again, all Russia did is tell the truth. It would be different if Russia lied. Then, there would be a problem. But it's kind of like, if she wasn't dishonest, none of this would happen. So when it comes to here it's talking about Russia hacking, I think it's just a deflection because she doesn't really get into her emails. Hillary Clinton, she made one of her emails all about Honest Abe. She tried to pin it all on an Abraham Lincoln movie. I just think she just uses Russia to get out of answering questions about the contents of, because you notice, each and every time a moderator says, "Could you explain this line? Could you explain that line?" She just makes up a phony excuse that nobody even believes. And she's like, "This is a problem with Russia hacking." And I don't think we know for sure that it's Russia. I mean, I could go through the Associated Press's Twitter feed to see what they have to say about it. But we know for sure if it's Russia. And as for the second question, how do you feel about Putin? I don't really know enough about Putin to make an opinion. I mean, it's like I don't know enough about Putin. I don't know enough about Russia. So for me, it's kind of like he's a cool guy. I don't know.
Well, Twitch, you want to go next?
I don't know about him.
I'll answer the second question first because how I feel about Putin is I don't like the guy. He's a dictator. But I don't see him anywhere in anything he says trying to pick a fight. I don't see him lying. He's telling truth to the media, and that's a strange thing. He actually took up a question from a BBC reporter once, and he talked for 5 minutes, and the BBC reporter was so put in his place that it wasn't even funny anymore. So he's really smart, and I don't think he's out to pick a fight. He is a dictator. Yeah, so I'm not in Russia. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with the fact that he is a dictator, but I have no problem with him because he is a dictator. Because it doesn't affect me in any way. But he's very smart. He's strong. He's willful, and he knows what he's talking about.
No, it doesn't. Oh, sorry.
And then the first question, what do I think of Hillary talking about Russia and Russia hacking? Yeah, it's deflection. 17 agencies say that. How many agencies are there? I think about 250. And 17 found evidence, and the other 233? didn't find any evidence. So where's the evidence? Show it.
You
Show
know,
it.
when it comes to Putin, one thing that I noticed about Putin and the Russian embassy is that they're very well spoken. Like even Sarko did this compare British person, like compared how British people talk and compared it to the Russian embassy. And we're still talking about leaders. He was
Hmm.
talking about British leaders, and he compared the British leaders to the Russian leaders, and he took an article from the Russian embassy website. It's like, notice how the Russians are very well spoken, and I
Yeah.
noticed that we're like comparing it like to America and Russia. I look at the Russian embassy and I look at statements and I look at
Also, yeah.
Americans, and I noticed that the Russians are far more well spoken. It's
But
like,
also, Putin has the people around him, his cabinet. I think it's Minister of External Affairs. I think is a woman, and she is so outspoken, and you can't catch her. She's way too smart, and they know exactly what they are saying, and they won't put a band-aid on it. They just tear open the wound and say, "This is it." They're very strong, very willful people. I like them in a way.
yeah, I was in a live stream. I was in a live stream with St. Clair, and somebody says, I don't know if it's true or not, but it said that many Russians, and I'm trying to fact check it and trying to go and Google it, but according when I was in a live stream, somebody said that most Russians love Putin, but I don't know if it's true.
That's what I read too. I don't know where, but most of them, for example, is policy on gays. There are interviews conducted in the streets in Moscow, and they couldn't find very many people who were opposed to it. So I think he has the backing of his people.
Well, to answer, just say, unless you guys had something to say first.
No go.
Okay. To answer the Hillary question, I would, at the risk of having somebody in the chat going echo chamber much, I would, because there is always that danger. We need to be ever vigilant. But, I would say with Hillary, I think she's trying to manufacture a crisis.
Yeah.
I think in doing so, it really shows you who she is, that she is willing to restart a Cold War just to get elected president.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is Colin Powell said this in one of the emails that came out, that this woman, she already has everything in the world. She will never want for anything for the rest of her life, but she has always wanted this one thing. And he said she's a friend, although I don't know how they define friendship in Washington, because the next sentence is, she is consumed by a naked ambition and greed for power.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that about one of my friends.
No, Jenna Marbles made a video about her. I don't know if you both have seen it. About Hillary. She did a campaign video for Hillary, as Hillary, and she ends it with, "Why don't you vote for me? It's my turn."
Well,
me.
Yeah.
Me.
And the thing is, as I say, she's willing to use the Russians, and to be honest, the whole Russian narrative that they started, the whole WikiLeaks thing, a lot. There have been, I think I saw a tweet today saying that it wasn't the Russians after all. Of course, I would have appreciated a link to an article, so I would have been able to read it. But another sort of analyst who worked for our government actually came out and said, yeah, I thought it was that at first, and everybody just jumped on with that. And when I found out I was wrong, that train had already left the station, and I couldn't stop it. So I think that because the thing is with regards to Trump, I believe him when he says he's never really met with Putin, mainly because Putin doesn't seem like a friendship type of guy. Uh, just saying. But she's coming out about Putin's puppet, and it's sort of like, once again, deflection, considering she's probably the puppet of the last monarchies in the Middle East, as well as many in other country. Regarding Putin himself, I would agree with you, Twitch. He's a dictator.
Yeah.
And don't fuck with him, because he will end your world. Just ask Alexander Litvinenko over in London, who received a polonium cocktail that where he died quite painfully from it, you know. Yeah. And the joke there was, "You never leave KGB without some fallout," you know. But yeah, I read it somewhere. It was funny at the time. I guess you had to be there. But
yeah.
But the thing is he's a KGB guy. I don't know if he's Soviet first, but I definitely think he is Russian first. And I think what really influenced him was after the fall of the Soviet Union, I know a lot of people in America saw Russia as a joke, especially when Yeltsin was still president. And Yeltsin, all we saw from Yeltsin is that he was falling down from drinking too much vodka, or when he went to visit Ireland, he didn't actually visit the Irish to give talks because he was too drunk on the plane to get off the plane. And when somebody like Putin is looking at this, he's probably going, where the fuck's my country gone? And I think when he took power, from what I remember, he basically told the oligarchs, you can have this, but if you even step near the government, I will fucking end you.
Yeah, and he has the means and the will to do it.
And that's why you have a lot of oligarchs who decide to test that theory, and now they're living in either dead or living in exile in London and owning major football clubs. But I think that he wants what he believes is best for his country. And I don't think he wants the Soviet Union back. I think he wants a sort of a mix of the Russian Empire and the Byzantine Empire back. He wants an Orthodox church because, believe it or not, he might be, this supervillain, but he is also a highly religious man. He very much, he had a conversion experience when he nearly died. He and his family nearly died in a fire, but they were all basically able to get out. And he just completely went from, good Soviet atheist to bang on for, the Holy Trinity and the Theotokos. But, I think that he is really just wanting what's best for his country. With regards to how he was under the Bush administration, I think that he realized he could get away with a little here and a little there. But he knew that he couldn't get away with the whole shebang. Yeah. When Obama came around, it was like having an adult being replaced with a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed college freshman. And I remember seeing on British television, because I was finishing up my PhD, the first meeting between Putin and Obama. And I don't know if the camera really meant to do this, but you can see the camera. Obama's trying to talk to him and trying to be his Obama self, like I'm 2008 Obama. And Putin's not even acknowledging him, just sitting and drinking his tea. And you see Obama sort of looking away for a second and looking very frustrated. And it's at that moment I thought to myself, this guy is going to make that guy his bitch. Yeah. And essentially, that is what has happened for the past 8 years. They talk about Putin now like they're all a bunch of little Joseph McCarthys, and they certainly act like it if you act outside of their PC parameters. Isn't it strange how we all go full circle? But, I think Putin, he's just saying, I've got a chance here. But at the same time, he knows that they're stoking war against him, so I think he'd prefer to see a Trump presidency, and he would prefer a negotiator and everything, because he knows that he can keep a little bit of what he's got, like those Crimean, rights in the Crimea, or, getting more influence in the Middle East. Personally, I think Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's more to it, of course. A strong America and a strong Europe is in his interest.
Yes, and when he sees, with regards to these mealy-mouthed, soft-shoed, well, leftists, that's not what he's about.
Nope.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a capitalist. I think at best he's a corporatist, or well, actually he's probably a fascist. But he's one of these guys who is probably, I mean, it's not today's Russia, tomorrow the world. It's how much can I get here? How much can I get there? Can I get a little slice of this and a little slice of that? And if so, it's a good day.
Yeah, and it's very important for him to well, if America is no more and Europe is no more, he doesn't have anywhere to put his gas and his oil, and they'll be poor too.
And, well, yeah,
he knows this. He's
and
smart.
And the other thing is he wants oil rights here and he wants oil rights there. Yeah. I'm not sure if I misread this, but I think he's pissed off about the Keystone Pipeline not being voted through because everybody's bang on for the environment over here, and he just doesn't understand that because he's much more old school in that what is right for my country, not these higher ideals. But rather, just what is right for my country. And when he's running into all these idealists, he feels like, I don't know, the old general running into a bunch of high school kids just straight in the army. It's sort of like, what the fuck are you guys about?
Yeah.
And I think, all of these people, and what's so ridiculous is the arrogance of people on the left that that they're too arrogant to realize that there are people who do not think the same way they do. Yeah. They all went to the same schools. They all went to the same Ivy League schools where they think they're the smartest people in the room because they were told that. And then when they run up against a dose of fucking Putin grade reality,
realpolitik.
Realpolitik, yeah. When they get Bismarcked up the ass, they're like, all saying, what happened? Oh, it was their fault. They're mean. Oh, we should start up a Cold War. Good fucking luck with that. You guys don't have the balls for a Cold War.
I saw a tweet and it was hilarious. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so sad. When Trump said during the second debate, I want to be friends with Russia. I would like to be friends with Russia. And somebody actually tweeted out, did he just say that?
I would like to be friends with Russia too, instead of going to war with them.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, Putin does want to take down ISIS. It's just you have to keep an eye on what he wants after he takes down ISIS, much like you had to keep an eye on Stalin on what he wanted after World War II.
Well,
not to compare Putin with Stalin, because that's going a bit too far. That's being unfair to Putin.
But in the last 10 years before ISIS came to rise, right?
Yeah.
Russia was relatively silent. They weren't doing much. They're just minding their own business, really. And now he has a real threat. It's his next door neighbor, right?
Yeah.
So he's gonna help because it's my neighbor. And he wants Assad there, it's his friend in a political way. And I don't think I have a feeling about this. If he had wanted to do something, he would have already, long before ISIS. He would have a chance to go into Afghanistan. He would have had a chance to go into Iran. He has all these chances, and he doesn't take them because he's not interested.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, the thing is if you give somebody a chance to take advantage of something, they're going to take advantage of it. And when we did things like removed our missiles here and removed our missiles there, and we did all these other things and we didn't really react, and we were too busy when Obama was too busy trying to win an election by saying, I pulled troops out of Iraq and everything. a vacuum gets filled, so who's going to fill it? So,
Yeah.
you know, you have Putin come in. So, I mean, to answer Kobe's question, basically, Putin, he's a very likable villain in my eyes, but he's
I
still
think
a villain. He's still like in it from American interests, he's still a villain, but he's a likable villain because, quite frankly, if I were in his position, I could understand that. With regards to Russia, for the most part, yeah, I think they like him because Russian culture is different, and that's another thing that's kind of arrogant about American culture is not everybody thinks the same way you do, and
that's funny that you say that, because I have a lot of discussions with Americans about ours and the way we pay taxes and how we're prepared to pay taxes. We don't see really anything wrong with it, and how that's culturally so different.
well, and to be honest, I mean, I can understand where people are coming from to a degree there, because as I say, I lived in England and Ireland for 10 years. And I talk to people a lot here. I won't agree with them, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. One of the main things about that is, I think since the country is smaller and you got less people in the room to argue with each other, and it's kind of agreed upon by everyone, then yes, you can do that. But something like single payer over here, for example, I think would never work. You know, especially quite frankly, over in Europe, up until Merkel had the bright idea of doing this dumbassery, the population was largely controlled so you could cover costs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can see that. But, you know, when you have things like unrestricted immigration, it overloads the system, and you can't cover costs, and you have longer waiting times, and you don't have that availability to this medication or that treatment. And you're doing this just out of the goodness of your heart, and you're thinking to yourself, but I didn't really vote on this. This parliament just decided to grow some sort of super conscience in which they could save, I don't know, the entire Middle East from itself. And
sacrificing us.
Yeah, and that's not fair to the population they actually represent.
Yes, it's not fair to the population they actually represent. Is why I have a problem with Hillary Clinton wanting open borders and allow the Mexicans in, because the Mexicans are going to drag their problems over here with open borders.
Well, I don't think they will. I don't think they will take their
anyway,
problems. You know.
Do you have an article where you said that Hillary, for instance, she has insatiable greed? I'd like a copy of that article if you could give it to me.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now. But you send some Twitch.
Yeah, I don't think that that the Mexicans will take their problems with them. They'll just be a drain on your economy. That's the problem. They'll make new problems. You know, they won't take the drug lords with them.
Although there are sort of instances of gangs such as MS-13.
Yeah,
coming in.
Of course. Still, I don't think that would be the biggest issue. I think the bigger issue would be, well, that they're an economical drain, that they replace people in other jobs, and like Rin said, when her father was laid off because Mexicans were cheaper, yeah, that's not a good thing.
This reminds me of the fall of the Roman Empire.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were several reasons for the, and we're not talking about the Republic now. We're talking about the actual empire, the 400s, and that you know, that was a problem in which, you know, but the strange thing, the difference there is a lot of these so-called barbarians were willing to adopt Roman customs and Roman laws. You know, you had actually the people who were really defending, I just sent it to you. You're having people who really were actually defending the empire being the barbarians, people like Stilicho, people like Aeetes, people like, you know, various and sundry, they believed in the empire. They loved the empire. They wanted to be part of the empire. They spoke better Latin than the Romans themselves. They had Roman dress. They assimilated. And that's another problem that you have with sort of the unrestricted immigration coming in, is they don't want to assimilate. They don't want to assimilate in Germany. They don't want to assimilate in, in France. They don't want, a lot of them don't, not all, because I've lived in the UK, so I know, say, for example, Muslims who have assimilated and everything. But there are some Muslims who are coming in now, this new generation, they don't want to assimilate either. They refuse. And a lot of Mexicans, when they're being encouraged by sort of groups like La Raza, basically saying, you don't have to assimilate. You can learn you can learn at school and go to college over here and still learn Spanish. And that's a fucking pipe dream they're selling. But what they want to do is they're basically selling them a bill of goods. They basically they're setting up grievances to happen, saying this was promised to us by guys like these. And those very same groups say, yes, but now you need to keep fighting. And now you need to keep doing this. And now you need to be part of our freaking army.
Yeah, and that's why with the social justice warriors, they were promised things. The Generation X and Y were promised. You get a college degree, you get a job. So we got college degrees and we didn't get jobs. Well, Generation X was really miffed, and Generation Y was really brought up with that idea that they had the right to a job.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the tail end. Sorry, I just had to run and let my cat in. He wants to sit by the window. Generation X, I mean, we kind of had a clue about this. Yeah. But once Generation Y came in, I mean, there was less of a clue, and then even less of a clue and less of a clue with later generations. But it's basically all about creating this atmosphere in which you have to have basically what Trotsky called a permanent revolution. It's never enough. It's kind of like when the U.S. diplomat goes to the Soviet diplomat. What happens if you give in to our demands? And the Soviet diplomat just says, well, we're just going to ask you for more.
Yeah, the problem is that the college students, they think that they know everything, because the left kind of pushes the idea that, you know everything. It's kind of like, that's why talking to Hillary supporters is such a pain in the ass. They're so snooty and stuck up. And
oh my God, I fucking hate Hillary supporters on Twitter. They are, and you can always tell because they only have like 42 supporters or some shit like that, 42 followers. And I mean, not that I'm saying that I'm like freaking Mr. Medicare or Milo when he was still around, or somebody like that where I have thousands of followers because I have a YouTube channel or something like that. Not that I'm saying I'm, Sargon or something like that, but you can always tell because they always come in with the most fatuous arguments, just these things that come out straight talking points. And to be honest, I've run across this with some Trump bots as well, but the Hillary supporters, they just have this air of fucking superiority.
Dear Lord, yes.
I found on Twitter today, someone retweeted something from the New Real Peer Review. I don't know if you know them. They do a peer review of things that aren't peer reviewed. Abstracts, not a real period, social and material constructions of menstruation. Listen to this.
Jesus.
Despite
Mary, Mother of God.
Abstract begins with this line. Despite a great deal of feminist work that has highlighted its social construction, menstruation seems a self-evidently natural bodily process. Oh, really? Oh, really? It seems a self-evidently natural bodily process.
Thanks for telling that to, I don't know, about 200,000 years of women that came before you. You culturally superior moron.
Yeah. Seriously, and that's science now.
Science, yeah. Science.
That's science.
Science. Well, don't you know, in an age where, what is it, science must fall.
Yes, didn't like
Yeah. Science must fall. That's
Science
so
must
good.
fall.
didn't
And you used to make fun of us Catholics for saying this, but actually we defended science for a while, you know.
Yeah.
As long as Aristotle was around, we were good to go.
It's so
Science must fall.
yeah, science must fall.
Sorry,
Oh
Rin.
my god! But bodily
Sorry, Rin.
bodily processes seem to be natural. What?
Sorry. I'm getting a case of the lulz here. Go ahead, Rin. I'm sorry.
Dunderfoots made a video response to that. Like, there's this girl from Africa, and she was talking about like
Yeah.
science is like the white man's something yada yada yada.
Yeah,
It was to replace white science.
It all goes back to Cecil Rhodes and all that shit. Yeah.
A lot of people went over that, and I'm amazed that Teal Deer didn't do anything about it yet.
Oh wait for it.
Wait for it.
You know what? Teal Deer works hard enough. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, every so often, like you got to take a break. I mean, that's the thing. It's like,
but he does good work.
oh yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I'm like, I know you don't watch him, but Twitch, I know you watch Mr. Medicare, right?
Mr.
Internet Aristocrat.
Oh no. I watch him when I bump into him, but I don't have him listed as a.
Yeah, but the thing is, he has like quite like the intense freaking crazy following, and the tagline with him is like, "Where's the video, Jim? Where's the video, Jim?" And he's like going, "Dude, I'm not here to make your videos. You know, I make a video that interests me, and every so often I get distracted by something else." And, you know, it happens, but please don't depend on me like you depend on, like, you know, episodes of the show, like showing up. But, you know, I mean, so when you look at somebody like Teal Deer, it's sort of like, if he hasn't dealt with it yet, he might deal with it, you know, give him a break. He's probably just taking
Yeah. And then, but I'm amazed that he didn't, that he didn't already, you know, because it's such a shot in an open goal, you know.
Well, no, I was just presenting an example because, like, that there is that on YouTube with some of the more popular, you know, followings. Is that it's sort of like you need to be like Mundane Matt. You need to have like 3 videos a day, and then you need to come out and say, "Hey, everybody, this is Mundane Matt." You know, and it's you know, but yeah, I mean, some people need to take a break. So if Teal Deer hasn't done that yet.
No, but he puts a lot of work in his.
He's
videos.
prolific.
Yeah.
He's prolific. I like him. As I say, I like Sargon. Vernaculus put out like a fucking excellent video a couple days ago. Last night, he was talking about the media, and he was talking about a lot of stuff we were talking about tonight. Just about how it's turned from sort of this Murrow journalism into basically pundits and commentators, and like if you had a chance to watch it, it's a good video. It's a long video. I think it's about like 53 minutes long.
Yes, it's a really long video.
It's a super ass long video. To be honest, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched about half of it, but I had to teach today, and I have like a 2-hour commute, so I need to wake up really early. So it's sort of like, okay, it's like 12 a.m. I can't finish watching Vernaculus's video. So
about his video about
here, let me check really quickly.
Yeah, no, I watched it. I watched Vernaculus almost religiously.
Oh yeah, I love how he
allow me to explain.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's that's a video. Yeah. Allow me to explain. He goes into it. He's
but yeah, I mean,
he could be the birth of a new generation of journalists.
He's you know, I hope he becomes a journalist, and I hope he becomes a leading journalist, and I hope he becomes the next Murrow. And you know, I'm not trying to like kiss his ass or anything, because I don't agree with everything he says, but he was bang on with that video.
Yeah, that guy and some black guy did Science Must Fall, and he did it very good. Like,
Yeah.
what really? You're sitting there in that house built by white people, and you have an iPad built by white people. What?
No, I know. I know that that guy T
Yeah,
has gone off some on stuff like BLM and everything.
No, I'm talking about some black guy. That guy
No.
T
But
is,
that's
yeah.
a
but
good
I
That
again, I was
that guy
reading,
T
kind of
is
stuff.
really good on the BLM stuff. Yeah,
yeah, I was just
yeah,
giving a comparative example. I
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah, yeah.
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 But no, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. I mean, I like Dave Rubin, some of Dave Rubin's stuff. I do like some of Mundane Matt stuff because, like, I like his movie reviews. I think he does a good job with that, and I think that's something you really need when the only movie reviews you have these days are like by fucking Movie Bob or some shit. And I mean, I like a lot of YouTube people. I mean, I know you interviewed that guy T.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty that's pretty cool because I mean I've you can tell with some of these people you can trade barbs with them on Twitter, or they might like your tweet and everything, and you can tell they are connected to their listeners.
Yeah,
And
like
Yes,
bearing.
that's what I love about that guy too, is that he would occasionally like your tweets,
yeah, he's done that with me a few times. Mr. Medicare's done that with me a few times, or just done the bants and all that. Sargon, I think, has liked a grand total of 3 of my tweets and replied to a couple. Same with Vernaculus. I mean, the thing is it's kind of cool because these guys have like thousands of followers. So when they get back to you, you do feel. I mean, you're not like feeling, oh my god, I'm best friends with this guy, because you're not.
No.
You're not.
I'm really honored that Wizard of Coz follows me.
Yeah, I think Wizard of Coz follows me too. I'm pretty sure, but I once actually had sort of tweeting exchanges with Adam Baldwin, and I thought that was so awesome. Animal Mother, like, tweeted back and forth with me, and then I got too drunk, and then he just started ignoring my tweets that one night. But then he retweeted me another day, so it's cool. But that's the thing with Twitter, is like when I first, I mean, the thing is you do have to work with Twitter. You really have to freaking work at Twitter. Not that you have to like tweet every 2 seconds, but
I tried to tweet well in the early afternoon here, and when I'm drunk.
yeah
and my best tweets are when I'm drunk.
Well, actually, some of my most genius tweets, when I've gotten like my most likes, I like wake up the next day, and I've actually been drinking less lately. Like there were this couple of months where I thought, ooh, bourbon is a great thing.
Yeah.
And then I realized once I started teaching it, and after the summer was over, bourbon might not be not such a great thing. And but I'd wake up like, because that's the thing, is some nights, sit down and you have one drink and then another drink and then a few more drinks. And
so it's half a bottle.
Oh yeah. And by that time you're away with the fairies, and then you wake up the next day, you feel like hell, and you're thinking, everybody hates me on Twitter. And then you look and sort of like, Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
I just got 6 followers and 20 notifications. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. But now I'm not drinking so much now, sticking to a few light beers a night. So, I might not be as witty, but at the same time, at least I'm not waking up in pain and having that stupid hangover paranoia. Sorry, I'm talking too much. I'll shut up.
Nah.
What are your feelings, Rin?
There was just something I've been trying to bring up. I wasn't able to get to it earlier. It's about the Roman Empire, and I found an article about it. Let's see. It says, quote, there were political and military difficulties as well. It didn't help matters that political amateur control of Rome in the years leading up to its fall. Armor, army generals dominated the emperorship, and
Hmm.
corruption was rampant. Over time, the military was transformed into a mercenary army with no real loyalty to Rome, which is interesting because Niccolo Machiavelli said in The Prince about hiring mercenaries is a bad idea, loyal to Rome. Anyway, I'll continue. As money grew tight, the government hired the cheaper and less reliable Germanic soldiers to fight in Roman armies. By the end, these armies were defending Rome against their fellow Germanic tribesmen. Under these circumstances, the sack of Rome came as no surprise. And I do think that, I still think that America, because people are getting more and more angry with the government. I do think that as the Mexicans come in, there's going to be no real loyalty to America. I mean, because if America is going to be loyal to the citizens, then there's going to be no real reason for the citizens to be loyal to the country. So I do think that even with all of this technology, I do think there will come a time that America will fall. People don't act on pure emotions, and hopefully people would act via planning, because a lot of the bad decisions people will make because they're overly emotional. People will make much better decisions if they took the time out to plan things out.
I'm
Well,
gonna make a cup of coffee now because it's 20 to 7 now, and I really need coffee. So I'll
okay.
be back in a moment.
Oh, no problem, no problem. With regards to the Roman comparison, when you're talking about the sack of Rome, it depends on which sack of Rome you're talking about, because Rome was sacked twice during the 400s. With regards to the 410s, that sack came more because of a feeling that the Romans were not treating these Germans who had come in, these Germanic tribes who had come in and tried to assimilate, that these Germanic tribes weren't being treated properly. And it was kind of a mix of things. First of all, these Germanic tribes, they were trying to assimilate, but they also expected payment for their services. And the sack of 410, I can tell you, came pretty much under the rule of a teenage emperor called Honorius, who was pretty much a very entitled young punk. He was, a lot of historians have evaluated him as just above a waste of space. And he dealt with the whole situation of this one Germanic general, Alaric of the Visigoths, very badly. Like, he sort of made promises to him here and promises to him there, and Alaric at the same time was asking for this and asking for that. And at one point, Alaric wanted to be made a Roman general. Essentially, Honorius promised him this, but then reneged on the deal. So in order to kind of, and this is sort of the quick version, there's a lot more detail that I don't really have time to go into. But basically, Alaric was doing this to kind of show his power to Honorius. Like, I could come in, I can do this, remember who's working for you. Because the first sack of Rome was not all that destructive. All they did was knock the noses off a couple of statues. For the most part, they took a lot of money, but left all the buildings intact. So, I mean, with a lot of Germanic groups, you had people, it depended on which group you were dealing with. If you were dealing with the Ostrogoths or the Visigoths, they tended to very much want to assimilate and become Romans. Indeed, when they took over their respective areas of the Roman Empire, they kept things like Roman law and a lot of Roman traditions going. But if you're dealing with other Germanic groups like the Franks or the Vandals, the Vandals were horrible people, or the East Asiatic peoples such as the Huns, they didn't care about assimilation. They were going to come in. They were going to take their kingdom. They were going to get their own. So, I mean, with regards to the fall of the Roman Empire, it's all about who's willing to assimilate versus who's not willing to assimilate. And I think in that respect, you do have some people who come over here and they want to be an American. And that is a great thing. Other people, they might just want to come over for the good things that America has to offer, but at the same time, they've got one foot back in their own country.
Like the Mexicans.
Well, the thing is you can't really say that about all Mexicans, because there are some Mexicans who come over here and assimilate and learn the language and pay their taxes and do everything they need to do to be a citizen. But you do have a lot of other segments of that population that is really kind of has one foot in America and one foot in their country. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing to respect your heritage. And and these people usually, even the ones who want to have one foot in their country, all they really want to do is they'll obey the law. But the main problem is they got jobs and they want to get on with it. But at the same time, if they're accessing our jobs and public services and not really doing anything like paying taxes and contributing to, the overall economy, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say that all.
No, I didn't say you were. I didn't say you were. I was making that qualification.
Yeah, it's like my neighbors are Mexican, and they're great, wonderful people. I love my Mexican neighbors. I'm not sure Mexicans are like that, but there are people who are from Mexico, and I would talk to them and they don't speak a single word of English, like not even hello.
Yeah.
Like I would lose people at hello. I'm like, hello. And they're like, they would have the most confused look and they'll start talking to me.
Yeah.
You don't even know what hello means.
And that's a problem. That's the thing is I am of the opinion if you want to move down to Mexico and be a citizen of Mexico, then they don't cater to your English language. They expect you to speak Spanish. But if you're coming up here, then please at least have a cursory knowledge of the first language of this country, which is English. Because the thing is as they say with, there's this proposition coming up in California where they're going to be able to teach people in both Spanish and English. And the thing is that's not going to help you if you want to go to college. That's not going to help you if you want to go into the workforce. And chances are you're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be taken advantage of, especially by people like big agriculture out in California that wants this labor to come in so they can pay them less. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to formulate my thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. There are Mexicans that come in and they don't speak a single word of English. And me and Based Mama were talking about it. There are people, they should talk about people who actually lived in America all of their lives, not being able to speak a single word of English, but when they try to go to the other states, like when they try to go like away from California and let's say to like another states, they're screwed over in another states.
No, I know.
English, and they're like fuck, they're totally fucked because it's like they in the California they're catered to. They grow up speaking Spanish, so they don't understand a single word of English, and they're screwed over in another state.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
can I say something about this?
Go ahead.
We have the open market here right now. The Maastricht Treaty opened the borders between European states, so we got a lot of what do you call them? They're not. They don't immigrate. They come over to work here, especially from Poland and Ukraine and those kinds of states. Now, let me tell
Czech
you,
Republic. Yeah.
when you need your wall plastered, you can take a Dutch company, and they will ask a set price, because they work with set prices. So I had my living room done. It cost me 2,000 euros, right? I got a Polish guy for the kitchen. The kitchen is a bit smaller, and he plastered it, and it's straight. It's straight as hell. It's so nicely done, and he asked 200 euros.
Jesus.
Yeah. So the same work, for about say 33% of the price.
Well, actually, 10% of the price.
No, because the kitchen is that much smaller, right?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
It's about 33% of the price. That's insane. That's it's price fixing in Holland, and
Yeah.
the Polish come over and they do an excellent job, and they think, and if they see a problem, they solve it, and they do good work. And I tell you, if you can get a Polish person to do something for you, please get him. because you're really hurting yourself if you just play by the rules. And well, the rules, of course, are that I can now simply take a Polish person, because they can work here, and they use that, and then the plasterers in Holland are complaining that the Polish people are so much cheaper. Yeah, then why do you ask so much money then?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask, is why are the Dutch plasterers so able to ask for this? What makes them think that they can ask for such a price?
Exactly. What makes you think that you are worth that much money? Well, they were, because they were the only ones. It was, in the time of the guilds, it was a protected occupation, and still not many people do it, because it's really, really hard work, and you have to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So a good plasterer is worth every cent you give him, but if another one comes in and does it for 33% of the price, a third, then haven't we been paying too much all that time?
Yeah. And that's the one thing, is over here, I know, you have a lot of things in for example, in the places like the automobile industry, where you had these unions pretty much being able to ask whatever price that they wanted, where you make this much money and you get this much stuff to do the same amount of work. Yeah. And so you get a lot of people, okay, then we're going to ship stuff overseas. Yeah. And, one of the things that hasn't been raised yet, but this asking for a $15 minimum wage, seriously, to work at some place like McDonald's, that is a pipe dream. Because what will happen is that, first of all, instead of that 99-cent burger, it's going to be a $3 burger. And you're also going to get a lot of these companies, in order to deal with costs, well, having an automated industry where they don't need as many workers.
Yeah, so, a robot flipping burgers is 30,000.
Yeah, so I think exactly. And I think that there needs to be a conversation over what's between everybody over what's reasonable versus what isn't reasonable. It's kind of like, what you expect. Of course, this is what you want. Mm-hmm. But what would you be able to work with? Because let's be realistic. Flipping burgers is not a life job.
No. Well, there's a restaurant in Utrecht, and it's two guys, and they make burgers and fries. I don't know the name of the restaurant, but they make burgers. And I'll tell you this: they are twice as expensive as a Big Mac, but you'll never want a Big Mac again.
Well, that's the thing, is you're paying for quality in that respect. If you have something to sell in that, like, the reason why you go to somewhere, I don't know, Chipotle as opposed to Taco Bell is because they have better quality food.
Yeah, because
yeah, go ahead, Ren.
places that are much expensive than the McDonald's here, but the burgers taste so much more better. That's why it's more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, and that's a problem, because what you pay for is at McDonald's and Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken is such bad quality that you'll get fat.
Well, the thing is, I can't eat a whole lot of fast food anymore. It's sort of like people are saying, ooh, what fast food do you like, McDonald's or Burger King? It's sort of like, actually, I like Wendy's. I mean, or I like Five Guys or some shit like that, or Whataburger, because the thing is McDonald's, it's like I can taste the chemicals.
Yeah,
I can taste the chemicals.
Cardboard.
Yeah, or Pizza Hut. Ugh,
yeah, that failed miserably here.
Yeah, I can understand why. But the thing is that's just fast food and the idea of minimum wage. But when you're talking about like plastering, when you're doing this huge job, and I mean that is a little different, say, than paying 99 cents versus $3. But I can see where you're coming from, and that's where it gets really
exactly. Look at this like this. The man did this on his own, and he took a week. That's 8,000 a month.
Wow.
8,000 a month.
That's he's gonna have a nice Christmas.
No, he was working for a boss.
Oh, then he's going to have a shitty Christmas.
Yeah. Well, he makes good money, right? But not. He doesn't make 2,000. His boss makes about of the 2,000. I think his boss will take 1,000.
Yeah.
And he does nothing for it. He just sends him here. And that's the serious inequality in there.
Well, that's the thing, is if you just let this guy work by himself, he'd be making a lot of money.
He would probably ask half.
Well, yeah, he'd charge less. And that's the thing, is you got to cut these middlemen out. You have to sort of simplify and, cut the fat.
Never take a company if you can take one man.
Well, exactly. I mean, I remember I got my car bashed up. I mean, it wasn't like totaled or anything. It just, there was a dent in the front thing, in the front bender. And I remember I was driving up this highway, and I was getting off the exit, and this repair truck was getting off the exit next to me, and he was like waving at me. I'm like going, what the fuck? Am I is my car on fire or something like that? And I rolled down the window. He says, I see your bumper. I can fix that for you. And we're just at the light, and I'm going, how much? He goes, $160. I said, follow me. And we just, fixed it near the garage of my apartment complex. He wanted cash, so that way he didn't have to claim it in taxes.
Yeah, of course.
I was living in the Northeast at the time, and you know how they love taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we had a good conversation, and he did a good job with it. I mean, it wasn't a perfect job, but you get what you pay for. And basically I was in a place where it would have been $400 or something like that. And this was one of those times when I had 4 jobs. So I'm like going, okay, yeah, I'll definitely go with that.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
We have a little village here up on a hill. And there's a small farmer, and he has a stretch of land, and he grows all kinds of vegetables. And when it's time for a certain vegetable to be harvested, he harvests about a quarter of it and puts it under where the carriage used to stand, koetshuis. And he opens the gate and he puts a box on the table and says, for example, zucchinis, 150 a piece, and he walks away. That's it. If you go there and you take a zucchini, you put 150 in the box. That's what you do.
Yeah. I hate zucchini.
I love it. It's great food.
Well, when we didn't have much money when I was a kid, my mom, she was going to college at the time after she had me and my older sister. This was before my younger sister was born. And she had this one friend who was like, it was in Washington State, and this was when sort of organic farming was picking up and stuff. And this guy would just have all this extra zucchini. So my mom, this was when my dad sort of lost his job, so we were looking for ways to just have food on the table. So she made all this shit with zucchini, like zucchini bread, zucchini with pasta.
Yeah. It gets boring.
Zucchini lasagna, and it was sort of like, oh, Jesus Christ, what this, and so to this day, my mom's like going, "Would you like some of my zucchini bread?" I said, "Fuck no, Mom. I love you, but
go away with the stuff." Oh, I can get behind that.
Yeah, it's kind of like why I can't eat tuna casserole anymore.
Oh,
It's just stuff like that, But anyway,
it's yeah.
Those were the days, the early 1980s. But,
early 1980s.
Yeah. I was born in '76, so yeah.
Bad memories of that time. That's my thing. Yeah, that's my thing.